What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Radpack podcast, your number one hangout for all things rad,
weird,
and killer.
When it comes to movies, nostalgia, and collectibles. And I am your host, Garrett from Born to Be Rad, aka the G-rated superstar, aka the dude with Raditude.
And I'm your host, Mo, from My Killer Podcast, aka Mo Capello, aka the Rad Adder.
And I'm your host, Justin, from Movie Watch Daily, aka the Rad Interrupter, aka the Dead Couch, and we are the Rad Pack.
Welcome, everybody. How are we all doing tonight, guys? How are you guys doing? I want to give a little shout out really quick to Christian at Planet CHH over there for letting us use that intro. I love that song.
I was literally thinking the whole time, this sounds like Christian. Is this Christian? It is.
Yeah, that was dope. I didn't know we were gonna hear that. That was so sick.
Yeah.
So we had that as a little intro tonight. That's Christian Hanner over there. It's his new song. So it's really cool that he let us use that tonight on the pod. This is actually episode 1 of the new Radpack podcast. We're gonna do it live, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who tuned into the Radpack podcast live pilot last night, because I've heard just great feedback about it. It was a little bit of a different format, but it seems like everybody really dug it. And I think it's kind of a cool little thing that we're going to do a couple times a month leading up to these big live shows. What do you guys think?
I love it. It was so much fun. The chat was popping.
That was exciting. We worked really hard on that episode, and when it finally premiered, I was hoping that everybody liked it, because it is a little bit different. I mean, it's still us just chopping it up in format, but it's a little more produced, and it wasn't live, so the chat aspect wasn't there. So we were hoping people would still want to just watch our faces and hear what we had to say, and the response has been amazing. So really happy about the way that it came out, man.
Yeah, and I mean, I want to give props to Justin down there, because we recorded that, and it was a lot of footage and a lot of material, and he edited it out. So if you guys kind of liked how it flowed and the different things that were inside the episode as it was recorded, then that's all him. So thanks, dude.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. It was fun. There's a lot of outtakes that weren't in there, so maybe one of these days we'll release some of those outtakes.
We gotta have a blooper reel.
We do, because there was so much footage. I mean, the episode ended up being about 1 hour and 35 minutes, but there was about 2 hours and 10 minutes of footage. Some of us was just goofing around and us screwing up, trying to get the intro 50 times. There was a lot of funny stuff in there. So maybe one of these days we'll do a blooper reel. I guess Garrett, if you want to tell them about the new channel, that's pretty exciting. Or if you want to keep that for the news section, I don't know how we were going to do it.
No, let's talk about it now, guys, because again, I was actually trying to link it so it was actually going live right now, but because it's new, I had to they're going to send me a link after 48 hours to let lives be a thing on the channel. But guys, you can now find the Radpack episodes on YouTube are actually going to be on its own channel. It's going to be on the Radpack on YouTube. And you can find that link in the description of this video. It's a brand new channel. It's called the Radpack. And we're going to start doing all the Radpack episodes on that channel. So if you're checking this out now or on the replay, go into the description and click that link, because that is going to bring you to the page. Because right now it's brand new and it's only got 2 or 3 subscribers, it's hard to find. But if you click that link right now, let's start getting those subscribers up. So then it's going to be easy to find if you just type it in on the search screen. So that's where all the episodes are going to be after tonight. So this is the last time this is going to be just on my channel. Everything's going to be over there when it comes to YouTube and the Radpack itself. So definitely go click that link and subscribe down there, and you'll see the episode from last night there as well waiting. So pretty cool. It's going to be a new adventure to kind of restart a channel, but I think it's kind of needed.
Yeah, I think it'll be cool. And you'll be able to find everything Radpack all in one place. So there's a dedicated channel for all the episodes and stuff like that. So that's going to be cool. So definitely go and then subscribe to that. And we're going to be putting up clips and maybe little bonus videos that pop up unexpected. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen over that crazy Radpack channel.
And you'll also be able to find the Radpack podcast on audio platforms as well. We're just kind of waiting for that to get approved, and we'll let you guys know as soon as that's up. But it should be on all platforms very, very soon. And it will be the episode, the pilot from last night, and it'll be this one will be the first two that will be on there. And then we're going to get ready, I think, in like a week to record the next one. So this is a live one, guys. So like I said, we still want to do these monthly live shows and almost make these like the big events. And other episodes that are going to be on the audio are going to be a little bit more of just leading up to these big events and talking about current events and what's going on in the world of movies, physical media.
Yeah. That first episode, if people have not seen it yet, it is like, I can't believe how much stuff we were able to pack into that episode. It is jam-packed. So we had Mel's movie news about upcoming releases coming in February. We went over general movie news, talking about just the Beau is Afraid trailer. We kind of did a mini review of Megan. We did a pickup section. It was just jam-packed with stuff. So definitely go check that out if you guys have not seen it, because it's a great episode. It's some of the best stuff we've ever done, in my opinion. It's a great app. So.
Yeah, and it's funny because it was the first time we ever recorded a show without a live chat. Oh, not
wasn't that
being
weird?
Live.
It felt
it
like
was kind of weird,
into
and I almost felt like it was harder for some reason. Like I almost felt like I'm better live. I don't know why. It's strange.
It was harder. We messed up so much. It was ridiculous.
It was different. Well, it just reminded me of when I film a video, like, doing way too many takes of stuff and just like going back and running things back and doing it again. So it felt a lot like just recording a YouTube video, but it was definitely a lot different than doing it live. That's for sure.
Yeah. And, again, you missed a lot of the blooper reel because Mel was on fire that night. And the funny thing was, Mel, she was laughing like the whole time. But what's crazy is the next day she was like bedridden sick. Like I would have never in a million years known that like you were like feeling ill that night at all. You didn't say it, and you didn't miss a beat.
I was so sick. I had like the worst headache ever. So like I can see it in my face when I watched it back, because I was like, while you guys were talking, I was like feeling the pain all over again. I was like, oh my God.
You put on your game face though. I didn't really notice that you were sick or tired until like the very end. We were trying to do another segment and you were like, maybe we'll skip that one. You're like, because we had jammed so much into there, but
can we be done? Okay.
Yeah, can we be done now? Because I want to go die.
And then I did too. I was like, F this, F that, I'm out. I just went straight to bed.
But keep an eye out. I think I'll go through that footage and we'll get some kind of a blooper reel, maybe like a little bonus video, and we'll cut together something and throw that on the RadPack channel. So watch out for that, because there is a lot of really funny stuff.
It is funny. But yeah, so guys, what are we doing tonight?
We're going to be talking about the history of our collecting, which I'm curious, because I don't think I've heard everybody's story. I know I've heard some in your room tour video. You talked a lot about your history and stuff, but I don't really know much about your guys' early collecting history, and I'm sure they're all like a little bit different, all of ours.
Cue the donkey.
I need the donkey graphic.
We always got to have a donkey in there somewhere.
You're right. And some people probably have heard a little bit of our stories here and there because we've talked about them on other episodes on all of our different channels, just, in passing and stuff like that. But guys, because this is going to be the first episode of the audio podcast, we want people that are listening maybe for the first time over there to just kind of know who we are if they don't follow us on YouTube or social media. So we want to kind of use this as almost like that intro episode to kind of get to know who we are and where all of this love for, movies and all these different things came from. And for me, like, I think it came at a very young age. And chat, I'm going to get to you guys. We're going to split it into sections just because this will be on audio. So we'll go through our early collecting and then we'll get into the chat and we'll just kind of see who's in here. And then we'll do that at the end as well. We'll do like a Q&A, but we see you in there. And when one of us is talking, the other ones will kind of chime in the chat or whatever. But yeah, so growing up, I mean, I can start. I've had a collector's mindset since I think as long as I can remember. Like I was a little kid and I can remember just little things like the first action figure line that I remember collecting when I was a kid was He-Man. Like He-Man was the first one that I started collecting as far as I know, because I remember I had like Skeletor first. And then I think I got He-Man, but then it was like I needed everybody. Like it was like everybody I needed. I needed the bases, the vehicles. Like it was just everywhere until every Christmas. That's what I was getting. Birthdays I was getting, and that was just a little kid. I just remember having like bags of He-Man and setting up like different things at the house. And then it's it went from there to a different action figure line. Like I think G.I. Joe might have been next, and it was like I just couldn't have one. Like I needed everything. Then He-Man stayed in like a toy box over there, and then G.I. Joe was like the new thing. And to me, it felt like, I don't know, it felt like forever, but I mean, it could have just been like 6 months for all I know. But
yeah,
I just remember having so many. I'd bring them in the tub. We had like a sandbox in my backyard. I'd like have them in there. Friends would come over from the neighborhood, and they'd bring theirs, and we'd build like forts and like bushes and stuff, and like have like little wars. And so it really started with action figures. And then from there, I think it went right to Ghostbusters, same deal. Like I had to have the vehicles, the firehouse and the car. And then after that, it was Ninja Turtles. Like it went in sections for me. Like I can just kind of remember it. It was always the same thing. It was always like I needed everything. And some I had more of and some I didn't. And then it was wrestlers and stuff like that. And then, Nintendo came out during that time, and it was like same thing. Like I was collecting games, making sure they were all nice, lined up. Like I had an entertainment center. Like it was always just in the back of my head. And then cassette tapes was the same thing. Now, I just remember being so young, and like that's just my mindset. It was always like everything had to have its place, and I needed just not one of something. Like if I could just get one He-Man guy, like I wouldn't ever want to play with that figure again. Like I needed to have everything. Now, Mel, what do you remember like being a kid? Did anything spark you where you're kind of like, I can kind of see why I feel this way now when it comes to either collecting or why you're so much into movies now? Because I think for me, like I watched VHS tapes like growing up, but it wasn't a collecting thing, pre-teen for me.
Yeah, so I blame my momster. Some of you have heard this story before, but she was a movie collector. But she wasn't a movie collector in the way of like she had to have everything. She wanted all of the movies she loved. So she just bought all kinds of VHSs. So I always had like I don't know if any of you guys remember this commercial. It was always at the beginning of a VHS tape. It was building a home movie library. It was like a
No.
commercial with a chalkboard. Oh, chat. Somebody tell me that you remember this commercial, but it was like a
Yeah, I
guy
remember that
writing
at
on a
all.
chalkboard, and he's talking about building a home movie library. So my mom just always had that. She always had a million movies, and they were all VHSs, and they were all like cheesy B horror movies with like a couple comedies sprinkled in there, like Overboard and stuff, because she was like really into Kurt Russell.
She's smart lady.
So yeah, so she would buy me VHS movies, and then I kind of just started collecting them as she bought them for me. And then I had my own little VHS library. So then when I became old enough to like want movies or ask for movies, I would just start asking for them for Christmas presents and stuff like that. And then I just started buying them myself. So yeah, it was totally 100% my mom. She still has all of her VHSs. She has like 3 VHS players. She still watches them.
Wow.
That's cool.
Bought her a Blu-ray player because she refused to buy one for herself. So now every Christmas I am like rebuying her VHSs on Blu-ray, but yet she still keeps them. So I'm pushing her in the ways of like Blu-ray and 4K right now, but she's really holding on to VHS. She still has her record player. Like she's very old school hippie lady.
That's
Now, let me
awesome.
ask you this. Like, does she have still a pretty good VHS collection or no?
Yeah, she has hundreds and hundreds of VHSs.
So you saying to her, make sure if you ever get rid of these or anything happens, like those are mine.
Yes.
Is
So
there some
I
kind of
have
deal in
told
place?
her that. But every once in a while, because now I'm like reverting, like I went all the way up to 4K, and now I'm like, Mom, do you still have that VHS? I was just hounding her the other day. I was like, Mom, do you have that Dr. Giggles VHS? And she's like, yeah, why? And I'm like, because I won't sit. And she's like, you have to buy me the DVD then.
And you're
So
like,
I
can I
have
just
to
borrow
like
it, take a picture, and give it back, please?
So I have to like buy her like copies
Right.
for her to give me her VHSs and stuff.
That is.
Does she have like a full library set up? Does she have it like displayed or anything like that, or is it in boxes or?
So she has like an old entertainment center.
Mm.
So some of the shelves are full there, and then she has like a bookshelf in her room that's full. I mean, she doesn't like display them proudly like we do. Like
Yeah.
some of them are the entertainment center had like drawers. So now you're like trying to get that drawer out of there. It weighs like 1,000 pounds because there's like a bunch of movies in there. But yeah, hers are all torn up though. Like her VHS slip covers, they're all not in good condition.
Yeah, but
Now-
that's kind of that's how mine were too.
Do you think that like when's the next time you're gonna go over there?
Probably soon.
So what what I think would be neat is if like you could just do like a little video like of like you opening the drawer where they're all lined up and like just do like a small like almost like vlog of like her collection. I think that would be sick. And then you can just edit it into something.
Yeah, I do have a couple of those videos saved on my TikTok. I just haven't done anything with them yet of her movie collection. She still has those movies where it was like a blank VHS and you could fit like 3 movies on there. Because my grandpa was really crafty. He like rigged up his TV situation where he had 2 VHS players, and then you could put a blank tape in one and you could record the TV on the other one. Or put a movie in the other one and then record. So we had all of these blank VHS tapes with like 3 movies on it, but they were recorded from the movie, so you didn't have commercials and stuff.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Like I just that blows me away that you have that, because I mean, growing up we had a lot of tapes, but our VHSs mostly were like recorded off TV movies. Like that's mostly what we had. We had probably ones that you got at the store, like as kids, I don't know, maybe 10 of those, but the rest were all like things we recorded off TV, like, Christmas specials or different movies. Like I remember having like Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but they were like the ones recorded off like USA or whatever channel it was. Like I had a lot of those horror movies. But then when I get a little bit older, that's when things kind of changed when it came to that. But I think that's so cool that she has that, because that's like, there's probably some good things in there, like some gold in there. And regardless if it's in bad condition or not, like VHS tapes are still hard to come by unless you find them at a thrift store. Like even if you go online and search one out, like sometimes, you're paying a decent amount of money for them.
Yeah, you're still paying like 20 or $30 for like VHSs nobody's looking for.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, my history is actually really similar to yours in that way, because Garrett, it's interesting, Garrett, that you can remember like all of the figures and stuff when you were a super little kid. I never had that collector's mindset. I really didn't. I would tear myself up. I wasn't like the kid that would keep his toys in packages or anything like that. So I don't really remember early stuff. The first time I ever like realized the concept that you could have a collection of things was very similar to you, Mel. My dad was a big collector. My dad was always huge on whatever new technology was coming out at the time. He had to have it. So we had like a CD player with just hundreds of CDs that my dad would buy of like boomer rock, like Eagles and Lynyrd Skynyrd and all that shit. But it was like everything. Cause back in the day, we've talked about this before. It was all about BMG Music Club and CD Warehouse, because you could just have them shipped to your house. So my dad had this massive collection of CDs. And also when VHS came around, he had a big collection of VHS tapes. And I used to just look at them, but and we also recorded things off the TV. The first time I took the initiative to have my own movie was on those VHS cassettes. And you mentioned the 3 movies on one tape. When you recorded onto a tape back in the day, there was 3 recording options, at least the ones on my tape, where you could do standard play, which was the highest quality, which was just 2 hours of recording time. And then there was a setting for long play, and you could have 4 hours of recording time. The quality dipped a little bit. Then you go to super long play, SLP. And that's when you could fit 6 hours depending on the tape, those orange Kodak super long play tapes. So I would look at the TV guide. I have a couple TV guides back there, and I would go through every night when I was, and I'd look at what was playing because all my shit played overnight because I would look at all the horror movies and stuff. And it's so stupid. It put the rating next to whatever you're watching, so HBO Cinemax, and I would just go until I found R, and then I would like, what's this? So I was recording like, Boys Will Be Boys. I had like Shannon Tweed movies and Shannon Worry movies and like Pamela Anderson late night stuff. But that's also where I discovered all the horror movies. Like I remember recording Hellraiser 3 and like Andrew Dice Clay comedy specials on HBO. And I would bring them over to my friend's house because my parents didn't let me watch rated R stuff. So I'd go over to like my buddy Tommy's house where he could just, everybody had that friend that, you could watch anything goes over there. So I'd record all these overnight because you could set a timer. It was really, really cool that you could do back in the day. So I'd set like 3 timers. I'd set like Cinemax, we're recording Hellraiser 2. Then HBO at like 3 a.m. would be playing, I don't know, some random action movie like Beyond the Law with Charlie Sheen. And then it would hit another one and it would record 3 movies overnight on a timer. And I'd wake up with this tape that had 3 movies on it. It's one funny story that I remember is my dad, he would buy all these movies just kind of by word of mouth and hear about these movies. And I remember my dad had Pulp Fiction. He had a bunch of them, but Pulp Fiction and Clerks. I think they came out both in '94, I think. And I wasn't allowed to watch them. I begged my dad, can I please just watch Pulp Fiction? I want to watch this fucking movie so bad. And he was like, Justin, you just can't watch it. I'm sorry. Like, it's not for, children or whatever. So I pulled, and what bugged me is he would not open them forever. Like, he would buy the movie and like not be ready to watch it yet, or like waiting for the perfect fucking time. So it would just sit there for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm like, I'm watching this fucking movie. So I would get a razor blade, I would pull the VHS tape, I would cut the bottom of the plastic out, flip the tape out, and I remember watching Clerks and Pulp Fiction. I remember the ending scene of Pulp Fiction where, Ving Rhames is just getting plowed, and I'm like, like, what the fuck am I watching?
That's why I can never watch that movie again.
Oh my God. So, and just discovering all these movies, like, I just always responded, and I loved, like, Overboard was actually a big one for me too. I loved all the comedies and stuff like that, but there was a special thing that sparked in me with like genre films. And that really, really stuck with me. So that was my collection. So on my birthday, there were certain R-rated movies that could slip by, like Terminator 2 and Speed. I fucking watched Speed and Demolition Man just so many times.
Demolition Man, hell yeah.
But as far as my earliest memories, that's probably where it was. My dad also, he had the entire run of Seinfeld that he recorded off TV because that was his favorite show. So he had like a 20 VHS tape collection, and he'd watch it with the remote. My dad was such a nerd, man. He'd have his finger on the pause button, and when it hit the commercial, he'd pause. And then when it came back on, he'd hit record.
Oh my God.
So
I love
what
it.
sucks now, but what sucks now is that I wish we had all those old commercials from like 92 and 93, because they would have been amazing to watch, but back then. So, but yeah, man, the VHS era was just it was just so cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, your dad seems pretty cool, man. Like that's so funny that he was really into that kind of stuff. It's my dad was into more like music, like CDs and records and stuff like that. Like, he was into that. But as far as movies, like, both my parents weren't really into movies that much. Like, they took us to the movies a lot, but like, and rented us movies and bought us movies like on specific, dates like Christmas and stuff. But like, they weren't really a lot of movie goers themselves. Like, but my uncle was, and that's kind of where I'm going to end up going after this. But
same.
Was it?
Yeah.
Now it's funny because like your dad was really big into it. Her mom was really big into it. So it's really just interesting that's kind of how it started. And with me, the collecting started at things like action figures. And you said you never really got into action figures that much?
No, it was more video games for me. I never really had figures. I'm sure I did, but I just don't remember a whole lot. Like, I had, probably the same toys that everybody had, like the, silly G.I. Joe, and my uncle's like leftover like Star Wars toys that were all broken from a decade before. But I never really had a lot of toys. There's a lot of like Sega games and Nintendo games that I collected.
And it's kind of similar to what you said, is like my parents would not let us watch R-rated movies if they had any control over it. So that's why, like, every time I was getting into things like horror and all that stuff, it was mainly on movies that were on the TV. Like, we didn't have HBO growing up or Cinemax or Showtime or it had to have been on cable, and then we would record it on those blanks. Like you were talking about, like we would record I would record horror movies. If I went on, like you said, TV Guide, okay, Saturday's showing Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday 13th, and I would record them there. And then that was okay because at that time, everything was cut. So it was fine that I record them off the TV. But what's funny is, I think it was you that said it. Dude, I remember my brother and I being like, oh, what are all these little buttons on this thing do? And I was like, oh, well, that's 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours. And I was like, who the hell? Why would nobody do 6? Like everything we recorded was like the 6 hour one. So like now going back and I'm like, dude, everything was like the worst quality ever. But like, we never did anything but that because I didn't really know nor I think cared about that back then. It was more like how many movies can I fit on this one little tape? Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, who would ever choose 2 hours when you could choose 6?
It's a waste of good
funny,
tape.
Looking back on it now. Right. So that's funny, guys. I mean, that's great. Now, Mel, growing up, like you were mostly just into movies. Like, is there anything else as a kid you remember like playing with or anything that you were like, I really like loved these things and I wanted them and stuff like that?
Not really. I have an older brother, so I wore a lot of his old clothes and I played with a lot of his old toys when I wasn't, down at the creek. And I mean, the creek, I make fun of that a lot, but the creek was real. So we lived next to a creek and that's where we played a lot. And, we were those kids that ran around in the woods and in the fields and stuff, and then you would hear mom screaming dinner, and then we'd be like miles away in the middle of nowhere and we'd have to like run back home. So we did a lot of that stuff. I had like a lot of 4-wheelers and mini bikes that we would ride around and stuff. So I didn't have a lot of toys. So when I was older and my mom got me into collecting movies and stuff, obviously I started collecting cassette tapes and then CDs and stuff like that, but that was about it. I didn't get into like the action figures and toys and props until like now.
Yeah, that's really similar to me. Garrett, did you grew up more in like I grew up like kind of similar to, I'm not so deep in the like a country and stuff, but definitely I think more like Midwest. Garrett, did you have like forests and like woods and creeks and like lakes and shit around you at all?
Yes, but it was like, I lived in like suburbs basically. So like, I was in a big neighborhood. So at the end of the neighborhood, there was woods on one side, and then you go to the other end of the neighborhood, and it was like woods. So there were a lot of woods, and we used to, play in the woods a lot growing up. And it was mostly like we'd bring our bikes in there and make like a track or we'd do manhunt in there at night with the neighborhood kids. Cause that was the thing is I had like probably in my neighborhood in close proximity to me, maybe one street over or the same street, probably like 8 kids that were all around the same age. Yeah. So we would every single day that there was either no school or on the weekends, we'd come out and I'd look down the street and my brother and I would just ride our bikes around the neighborhood, and wherever we saw a pile of bikes, whoever's yard that was in, we knew that's where everybody is. And we'd just go. And then we'd figure out we'd like play soccer in the back. We'd go in someone's pool. We'd play manhunt at night. We'd go in the woods and build jumps to use on our bike. So we did do a lot of that as well, like growing up. And that's kind of the area that I lived in was very like suburb, like outside of a city. Like
that's kind of why
cities are about a half hour from me one way and about an hour the other way. But it wasn't like a lot of like what you said, like a lot of forest and stuff.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because it seemed like maybe it wasn't like my shit. Like I walked out my door and then we had this woods and lake. So I think the instinct was more like that was our option to go like, and I was a huge rollerblader. So we like rollerbladed and shit.
Me too.
Yeah, and did all that stuff. So
no, that's cool. That's like Gleam in the Cube.
It was.
Yeah.
This is how nerdy I was. You guys had class rings, right? Like for high school.
Oh, yeah.
My fucking class ring had rollerblading on it with a pic, like with an engraving of a rollerblades.
Do you still have that?
That's how 90s. That. I think I actually don't have it anymore. It got lost in a move.
It's somewhere in that.
I wish.
It's probably like right there on his shelf.
If I had it, I would wear that fucker. It had like a blue like stone in it.
Yeah, mine was blue too. Yeah.
Yeah, like an old English J on the top. I like put way too much. That was so tacky.
I don't know. I don't have.
I bet it's on Reagan's finger back there, isn't it?
I wish I
Oh,
had.
dude, for real. Like before the show, that's why we were late. He was over here like,
Going back to the VHS, did you guys have those wood grain VHS drawers where you'd stack the drawers and they had the wood grain and you pull them open? Those things. I remember this. Do you guys remember the smell of those? When you open them, they had a very distinct smell to them.
Was it almost like a
plasticky?
plasticky?
It was like a plasticky, sweet smell, maybe from. It's just a sense memory that I have of opening those tapes up, and you could just smell the VHS, and it was just something. God, that's something so nostalgic.
I did have those, and what's happening is and I love this too. Is like when we talk about this stuff, and people in the chat too, let me know. But like you bringing that up, I'm kind of like, man, I'd love to find some of those and like just have them in here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that'd be amazing. Well, we're also close to the same age.
yeah, where are you gonna put them?
We're so close to the same age too, so I feel like all of our parents were discovering all the same technology at the same time. So we kind of came up at that exact same era when it was like super cool to have all that shit. I feel really fortunate that that I was able to grow up with that stuff. I remember the only thing I really kept meticulously, like, this is my stuff, this is my collection, was my Game Gear. I had like a little zip carrying case that the Game Gear slipped in there, and it stored games, and I'd play, Columns and Sonic and Streets of Rage on my little thing, and that was my deal. CDs and Game Gear and Game Boy games.
Well, I'm not fortunate because my mom still lives in that era.
I kind of like that.
That's
though.
cool,
That's
though.
That's so intriguing to me.
I didn't have anything until I was old enough to buy it myself.
Yeah.
But it does seem cool. Like I would love to just go over there and just like sit on the couch and be like, all right, how many movies we watching today? This is awesome.
You need to get her set up with some
mom
LEDs.
Would be all wrapped up in a blanket. She'd put her, bare feet all over you. That lady is always barefoot. She like
sick. Would she make us sandwiches or anything, you think?
Oh, hell no.
What did she make?
Make your own damn sandwich.
Some like weird vegetable thing from the vegetables she got out of the garden. It would have no seasoning. It'd be boiled in water. Like,
oh, is that what hell? That's the movie snack? That's the movie snack of choice?
Yeah, she'd be sitting there munching on like a beet or something.
Here's your boiled beets. Let's watch a flick.
Are you serious?
Oh, hell yeah. My mom, like, she'll pants your liver and sit there and eat it. My mom is so weird.
Liver's good
so,
for
like, you guys were talking about how your parents wouldn't let you watch, like, rated R movies and stuff, but we were never censored when I was a kid. Like, my mom she would put on a movie. It'd be a horror movie, and she'd be like, if you don't want to watch it, go to your room, So,
right. Oh, that's so funny.
I mean, of course, me and my brother would sit there and watch it, but
I remember my parents. I would be in my room, and they watched when Tales from the Crypt was on, and I remember being in my room, like the living room was, at the other end of the house, and I'd be at my thing, and I'd try to like sneak out while they were watching Tales from the Crypt. They'd be like, Justin, you can't watch this, and I'd try to sneak and listen to whatever they were watching at all those movies. But Mel, what you need to do is bring your mom into the modern age of collecting, get her some LED lights, get her some shelves, like have it all YouTubed out with her VHS tapes and shit. That'd be hilarious.
She wouldn't even know what to do.
You know what though, but her living in that basically she's living the same way she's probably lived like the last 40 years or whatever. Like that to me is like, I love it. Like I love
she's
that.
Crazy. Like a lot of times
she's probably
when I
so
roll
happy
over
just
to
being like,
their house, she'll just be walking around in the yard with no shoes and no socks on, like
that's awesome.
Living it.
Digging in the dirt and like tending to their animals and stuff. Like I'm not gonna go into all of this, but
what kind of
anyway.
animals? What kind of animals?
I literally grew up with pretty much all the animals too.
All the animals.
Alpacas all the animals and shit.
Well, because she was very much like, I gotta save all the animals. So if anybody ever found a hurt animal, like it came to our house. So I've had 2 pet raccoons in my life. Like we've had like all kinds of different animals. It's just insane. There was like one time my mom found a turkey on the side of the road and it was hurt and she nursed it back to health. And it was a mean turkey and his name was Thor. And like he would just run around the yard and chase me and my brother and peck us. And like we hated that thing. And then it died of old age because my mom just like kept it as
How long did you have him for?
I don't know. I was too young to even like know what was going on. It was just chasing me around.
That's wild.
This is
Wow. My
really
Killer
embarrassing
Podcast,
for me.
aka Annamel. I love it, dude.
This
These
is
stories are great. I'm glad
horrifying.
It's like Ace
we're doing this. I
Ventura,
mean,
pet detective
I'm,
over there.
I'm learning
That's
some
my
stuff.
mom.
Oh my god,
Such a
that is so
weirdo.
funny. That is great. I love it.
Is
So
it?
what we'll do?
It's embarrassing.
No,
Why
it
am I
isn't.
telling all
Why?
these stories?
Raccoons
Why
scare
would it
the
be
fuck
embarrassing
out of me.
though?
Are you kidding me? Those vicious beasts. Them and possums.
Oh
Like possums are
no.
even worse.
When you have them as pets and they like, hang out with you in the house and stuff, they're fine.
That's
Now,
crazy.
okay,
How
let me ask
raccoons
you
do
this:
those.
Did you, Mel? Did you have video games as a kid or no?
We did have a Nintendo. I remember playing like Super Mario Karts and Duck Hunter and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm. I remember our neighbors were my age and they were really into movies and stuff, and it was always cool to go to the neighbor's house because they always had like different movies than you. They had all those like hard box Disney movies, and I didn't
Oh
have
yeah.
like I think I had like Beauty and the Beast, like that's the only one we had or something. And so we used to go over there and like we'd always just watch all of those because at the time they were hard to get. Like remember they would only come out during certain times or whatever. They had like all of them, so we'd always go over there. And they also had maybe you guys remember the rewind machine where you'd put the thing in and it would like press
Oh,
it and rewind it
absolutely.
at like super
I had
speed.
one that was like a car. It was like an old, like vintage looking car, like Cadillac thing. It was like it was way too much for a rewinder, but it was really, really cool.
We never had one at our house, so I used to think that was like the coolest thing ever because we'd go over there and we'd be like, "I mean, rewind that tape," and it would rewind so fast. We're like, "Whoa!" Like,
Was your first VHS one of the top loaders? The very first VHS I remember
Yep.
was the top loader. Those things were so cool. Really bulky. You'd stick it in there and slam the thing down on the top. It was really,
Mhm.
really
It
cool.
almost had like I think the top of mine had like almost like a fake wood grain, and then it like popped up on the top. And you
Yeah.
slide the tape in. Yeah. I
VHS
don't know who
culture was
made it,
so
but
cool. My grandma would go to. She didn't know anything about any sort of pop culture whatsoever, but she would go into Best Buy or Walmart or whatever the hell stores were around back then. I don't remember, and she would just say like, "What's some good movies for my grandkids?" And somebody would just give her a stack of movies. So I remember they have all the Disney movies, but I remember she'd buy all things that she also had no idea what they were. Like my grandma had a copy of My Boyfriend's Back. It's like she would just buy any movie that she saw, and there would be a big cabinet, and we'd all gather on the floor in front of the TV in one of those big wood entertainment centers, and she had a cabinet of movies that she had never seen. She didn't know what the hell they were. She just buying movies for the kids, and we watched all kinds of really cool. Pinocchio was one of my favorite movies. Pinocchio and Sword in the Stone were
Oh,
my
Sword
like.
in the Stone.
That's such an underrated
Ah!
Disney
it
movie
is.
that nobody talks about, and it's
I
such an
loved that
amazing
one.
movie.
Did you
Yes.
watch The Secret of Nim too?
Oh yeah, Secret of Nim, all
Oh yeah.
those. The fantasy one. I really like the fantasy ones. They're
So good.
a lot of fun, man. And Wizard of Oz, man, I watched that so much.
Yeah,
The big
those were
clamshell.
definitely. Now, Mel was already watching horror at that time, at that age, under 12 or whatever. You and I were kind of dabbling and stuff. You were sneaking things around, but then you started getting into those like gateway movies, like The Gate was one, Teen Wolf was one, where it was like kind of touching upon some horror related stuff. So that was
Lady
all
in
kind of going
White.
around. Yep. So all those movies were even like Watcher in the Woods. Do you remember that one? I think like Disney did it or something like
I've
that.
never seen it, but I know about it.
Yeah. So there was like Are You Afraid of the Dark was starting to come out, like as like I was starting
Oh
to get
yeah.
into being like 12 years old or whatever.
Snick.
X-Files was starting to come out. So it was like starting to get into that, like, okay, I can start dabbling a little bit more into horror movies. And that was around the time where I started not downloading, Jesus, recording them off TV, like on tapes and stuff. I was really starting to get into it. But before we get into like the next part, like basically like early teens to teenage years and kind of what we were doing around that time, did we continue? Did we stop? I want to get into the chat really quick and see what they were kind of collecting at that young age. So we can start here. One Real Nerd says he was into G.I. Joes and Transformers. Definitely big. AV movie impulse. Nick said he was into He-Man and also Mask. Dude, they were very underrated. Nick did a video on that. You should check out. He talked about the Mask. Mask was a great show. Had a great theme song.
Never
Not
heard
many
of
people
it.
talk about that one. Hatch Family, Street Sharks.
Street Sharks, hell yeah.
And then Punisher Batman fan was into Star Wars. See, Star Wars was like a little before my time. My cousin had a lot of Star Wars, and every time we'd go to his house, I would be like, "Can you please bring out the Star Wars?" Because he
Same.
had like the bases and stuff, and it was so cool. But I never really had any.
I remember my uncle had one of those, and I'm not a Star Wars like aficionado. What were the big giant like walker things?
Oh yeah, the AT-AT or whatever.
They had an electronic one that actually walked. So it was, I think maybe I'm making that up. I remember it being like electronic, but had the big long, the tall things. That was really cool. They had some cool Star Wars toys.
Yeah, Star Wars was always really, really cool. Tony, speaking of collector, I've been a collector for as long as I remember. It's definitely a mindset. Yeah, that's the same thing. Like, and you know what else
Yeah.
is super weird? We didn't get into it too much, but talking about like figures and stuff, and you needed to have the whole set. Like, you know what I was notorious for that was the McDonald's toys. That was another thing
Oh.
where it was like I was so obsessed with like
Yeah.
if I got one and it was like I don't even care what it was. It could have been, I'm trying to think. They had like Oliver and Company, they had like Mario, Super Mario, they had the Nuggets, they had no matter which one I got, Fraggle Rock, Muppet Babies. I needed all of those.
I had California raisins from Hardee's. You guys remember
Yeah.
those?
My
I had the
aunt
whole
was,
set
like,
of
all about
California
those.
raisins. Yeah. I know it's weird, but
You know what else is funny is we talked about this in I think an episode I did with my brother. Is that for some reason I don't know why there's a California Raisins poster in my basement at my parents' house still. That's been there probably like my whole existence.
what a weird piece
It's
of
so
like
weird.
history.
And
It's
we
a
have
weird
one. And
creation.
there's one poster hanging in my house. One poster, and it's that one.
What a random thing, dude. Like for some weird ass reason in the 80s, like California raisins were like a thing. And it's like, why?
I know. It's like
Now I want to get on eBay and fucking buy
And
a set
buy
of them
them
'cause I
all.
want them. I want them now.
Stop yourself.
oh yeah.
Stop
See,
I,
that's the thing, I love. We're all
Shit.
on a spending freeze right now.
I know,
Yeah,
for real, seriously.
So talking about things we really want, like I'm at the point where I'm like, hell yeah, I want to get set up some raisins over here or whatever. But
Oh
like
my
we're
God.
on a
getting a
spending
set.
freeze, and we'll tell you why in a little bit. But yeah, man, like it's so random that poster's still sitting. Like it's to a point though where it's so old, and you know my dad like he smokes and he still smokes this day, and he's always had to smoke in the basement. So like that poster's been down there on the wall since I was. I don't know, 5 maybe.
It's all yellowed and shit.
It is, but it's one of those things that I like always thought about. Like, man, I wonder like if we touch that poster, I guarantee it just crumbles. Like
Just
it's probably
crumbles, yeah.
like
Probably
hanging
leave,
on
like,
by
a
like
square on the wall
oh
too.
yeah, oh yeah. But that thing like you can't touch it because it's like once that's touched, it's gone. So I'm like, we're just gonna leave it alone and let it sit there for as long as we can. But it's just really random that thing is still there. I'll try to take a picture next time I'm over there of it just kind of sitting
Yeah, I
there.
want to
But
see this thing.
it's wild, but we'll get back to the chat. And again, I love these episodes because it brings back some nostalgia, but I hate these episodes because it makes me want to go buy stuff.
Mhm.
I don't want to go buy that shit.
You know, nothing
Yeah.
we've talked about. You're like, hey, I kind of wish I had.
Mel,
those.
if
I
you
wanna
start
get
seeing
them.
me and Garrett posting pictures of our budding California raisins collection, just
I'm gonna be like,
you got to hit us up
unsub.
in the DMs. Like, stop, just stop.
Oh my god. Look at this. This is a good one. Mighty Max. Remember those things?
Man, barely.
VHS from McDonald's. I remember. I think I got Wayne's World from McDonald's once. I don't know if that sounds right, but what's up?
What's
Blue
up?
Attic? Oh, we can't. Don't talk about the Indiana Jones trilogy. I've never seen it.
That's insane.
I still haven't.
You
I've
just
never seen
watched
any
those
Indiana Jones movies. Never.
Jesus
Never have
Christ.
seen it.
Watch Temple of Doom. It's the only
That
one
was
you need
my
to see.
favorite.
It's my favorite one. Shout out to Momster.
Yep.
She's an OG collector. Thank you. All right, let's see. Blu-ray Addict says his parents had a VHS collection when he grew up watching horror movies as a kid.
Lucky.
Same.
Yeah, basically.
Is it though? Because I feel like I don't know. Being a
Okay,
different
well-
person, like I might be a completely different person had my mom not done that to me.
Not being able to see him just makes you want to watch him more. I mean, yeah, that's why I was like sneaking.
And
it
I
and
think
shit.
that's kind of why, you know, that kind of helped me, you know, and it's not helped me, but that's why I think I kind of fell in love with them as well as from that. So I do remember Muscles. Do you remember those guys?
Mm-mm.
They were like these little pink like wrestlers, almost like flesh colored. They were very small.
I don't remember that at all.
No.
What's up, Wet Movie?
What's up,
What's up?
bestie?
What's up, dude? Let's see. All right. So as we start to get in, because I'm way behind in the chat now. We're gonna get what's this? What movie says the first time I ever saw a favorite movie was it? Oh, Goonies, dude. Yeah, I remember seeing that as a kid. I freaking was in love
Now
with
it's his favorite movie ever after, man.
It's crazy, right? To think about that.
Mm-hmm.
So as we transition, like, I was still kind of a little kid, playing and collecting video games. Action figures was probably my biggest thing. But another thing I really, really was into as a kid and then right into like kind of preteen was baseball cards for me was a big thing. I was huge into it. Same story. It was like, couldn't have just one. Like I needed everything. I'd go to card shops and stuff. But I think what it is my uncle is really the catalyst, I think, to all of this because he got me into baseball cards. He got me into horror. When I was a little kid, he was trying to show me horror movies because he was always a collector too. Like he collected wrestling magazines, he collected horror, and then I became obsessed with wrestling. Like he was really the one that kind of got me into all that stuff. And I don't know why I was drawn to everything he was drawn. I think maybe because to me, he was like the cool uncle.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like he was straight out of like Poison or whatever. So like to me, he always looked like a rock star, right? He had like the dangly earring, the teased up black hair and stuff. And it was
Oh
like
my God, he was out.
I'll have to send you a picture, but it was. And like as a little kid, and he used to always give us like money and stuff. So like I always thought he was like the coolest. Like he'd take out like his wallet, he'd have like tons of money inside.
That's why he was the coolest. He was like, here's $5.
Like it was like little things like that
cool.
that I don't know. Like he was just like that, right? He'd be like, oh here, take this. Like I got plenty of it. Like at the time, being a little kid, like he could have had like 320s, right? Or whatever. So like in my head, I'm thinking, he could have had like 21s. And in my head, I'm like, dude, this guy's got so much money because as a kid, like you didn't know. You thought $100 you were like set for life,
That's what's cool about like the uncle, because my uncle was the same way. He used to show me movies. Well, like in his mind, it was like I'm into all this cool shit and I want to show it to him. And he wasn't like my parents, so he didn't care about restrictions or anything. So I would go over, like my parents would go on a date night, and I go over to my Uncle Herb's house, and I remember him showing me Psycho, Exorcist. He showed me Pink Flamingos when I was like 13 years old, and I was like, "Holy shit, Uncle Herb, you're freaking cool, man."
Uncle Herb.
Uncle Herb. It was Uncle Herb. I remember he said he smoked too, and I had him save all of his. You guys remember Marlboro Miles?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He'd save all of his Marlboro Miles and give them to me. But yeah, he was cool, man. I remember watching all those rad movies, and Pink Flamingos was a wild one to see at my young age.
Yeah.
It's a wild movie, but I remember The Exorcist a lot.
Criterion.
That's right. Now all of John Waters' stuff is on Criterion Collection, which is crazy. But we also watched like Hairspray. I really like the original John Waters Hairspray. It's a good movie. Polyester, all that stuff. Really cool.
Yeah, it is funny to see how like different people can kind of get you into certain things like growing up. And I think too with him too is he doesn't have kids, and he was a lot younger than my dad was.
Mm-hmm.
And so to him and to me, I was getting into all the same stuff he did. So as I started to get a little bit older, like I remember he started buying me a ton of Godzilla stuff, like VHS tapes and all that stuff, and we'd really be heavily into Godzilla. And like he'd bring me to baseball card shows and toy shows. And I think it was all stuff he liked to do, but because I was into it too, like it gave him more of a reason to like go, because he would just take me for the day, and we'd go and we'd buy Godzilla toys or baseball cards or whatever. And we were really collecting that. And then we started getting into like more wrestling action figures again. And then it was CDs, and he liked all the same music that I liked, like a lot of like heavy metal and stuff like that back in the day. And it was funny because I can remember, as I was getting a little bit older, I was really getting into CD collecting, and I was really into like heavy metal at the time. And he was always into like hair metal, heavy metal. So he had to me, he had everything. And I can remember like I was starting to get out of toys a little bit as I started to get into high school. And he was like, hey, I was like, oh my God, you have Metallica CDs? Like, I want them so bad. He's like, I'll give you these 4 Metallica CDs, but I want you to give, in return, you got to give me all your wrestling figures. And I was like, that's fine. I don't want those. I was like, you could. He's like, yeah, you're too old for those now. I'm like, yeah, I'm too old for those now. So I like traded them, right? And then it'd be like, oh, you have this, Stone Temple Pilots album, whatever. Like, I want that. He's like, all right, well, you know that Griffey rookie card that you have or whatever? Like, give me that. And then I'll use. And I would like,
that's kind of shady,
dude.
And I would like trade them like for all these CDs and stuff. I'm like, oh, you're the coolest, man. Thanks, whatever. And then, fast forward that, I'll get into that as we get back into the adult collecting portion of it, but that kind of comes back around later in life. But yeah, and then it really just got into horror and VHSs at that point, as a teenager in high school, but mainly through high school, I was collecting CDs. Like that was my jam, like different genres, but mostly like hardcore and then heavy metal stuff. I was really into more or less. And obviously like the mainstream rock and metal, like at the time when I was in high school, like Tool was huge and Limp Bizkit was starting to come out around that time. And
I had all those in that one of those big fat Case Logic books where you'd slip them all in there and just fly through the book. And
I had shelves upon shelves. I'm like, it was like basically like if you would look at our DVD shelves now, like that was me, but it was like with CDs. And like I was just collecting, and every week I'd go out and start collecting those things and stuff. And that was all through high school. When I got my car, then it was like every Tuesday I would go out and buy like the new single, my dad would bring me or whatever. And through high school, that's what I really got into, was like mostly music I was collecting a lot of at the time, CDs mostly. And then, VHS tapes and stuff like that. I was kind of dabbling at that point. Still loved movies and went to movies, but I wasn't really collecting until probably about 18, I would say. I had the stuff I had as a kid, but more or less I was really heavily into CD collecting up until about 18.
Yeah.
Is that where you kind of were at that point?
Yeah,
like,
I wasn't collecting
still, or
no, not really. The only movies I had were like the straggler, like VHS tapes that I would get for my birthday. Those big titles, like I said, like Speed and those type of like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, those big titles. And I just had a handful of them that I watched over and over again. CDs was where it's at because I had a used CD shop. So we'd ride our bikes to a place. It's called CD Warehouse, which actually will come up later because I actually ended up working there. In the used shop, which was really, really cool. So you'd be able to buy and sell and trade and all that shit. So yeah, CDs were huge. And then it started to finally transition into the DVD and stuff when like it really started popping off. And like the mid 2000s, at least for me, 2005, 2006, 7, like that era, that's when I really started digging into movies and stuff.
Mel, how about you? Was it all the same for you as it was kind of growing up with the movies and stuff? Or was there other things like music and stuff you would get more into like when you get like that young teen years?
Yeah, I started getting into CDs a lot too. So I was one of those people that bought one of those huge CD portfolio things that held like 600 of them. And then I would take them out of the cases and put them in there. I still have all the cases though, but they are still living in that CD portfolio to this day. And so we used to do this thing where we'd go cruising. So kind of like how you see in the movies. That would jump into one car and you would like cruise up and down Main Street in town. And then like when you hit the stoplight, people would like, they'd either jump out or people would jump in, and then you'd go cruising and you just listen to music. So that's kind of what we were doing. I was still picking up VHSs and stuff, but kind of like you said, Justin, around the early 2000s is when I started transitioning my VHSs to DVDs. And this is where I made my first mistake. And I started dumping all my VHSs. Every time I'd buy them on DVD, I'd just get rid of them.
Yeah, I started burning my CDs too. After a while, I just started burning all my songs off LimeWire and just making burned CDs.
Yeah, you know what I did? I got on iTunes and I put every single one of my CDs on there because you could like upload them on there.
Yeah.
And then so I had like thousands and thousands and thousands of songs. And then I got a new computer and all that shit was gone. Like you had to do it all over again.
Yeah.
So that was a huge bummer. But yeah, so I started my DVD collection at that point. And then I went to college and I got all my movies stolen. So that was a huge bummer.
That's crazy. That sucks.
Yeah, that sucked really bad because I was living in an apartment with a roommate, and they like came in one of the windows and just stole all of our
That's
stuff.
Such bullshit. Something like collections, and that was the big thing because you build up your collections for years, and then somebody just break your window and like take your life's collection of CDs in a second.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that,
about
that,
it.
Columbia
that
House
sucks.
victim. Cody says Columbia House victim right here.
Oh, so
The
I never got into
subscription.
that, but I know Justin had mentioned before he did, right?
Yeah, yeah, we
That
talked.
was always
Yeah.
something I really wanted to do. Like I remember
Mhm.
looking in the magazines and being like, "What? I can get like 4 CDs for a penny? Like this is
Every
nuts!"
magazine on fucking planet Earth had the little Columbia House or BMG card to send in. You know,
Yeah,
and
my
other
mom was like, "Absolutely not."
yeah.
But that is wild. Now, Justin, I'm curious to hear your story because again, when did you you were heavily into buying CDs. Now, what were you listening to? And the same thing, Mel, too. Like when you were buying your CDs, like what
Oh.
was your music of choice back then? Like mine was, like
Butt
I said,
rock.
was like
It was just butt
hardcore
rock.
rock.
It was
It was okay.
Pantera, Metallica, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park. You know, like just so many of those. I was big into Sublime and all those things, and then like probably a million other bands that Nirvana, Stone Temple Pilots, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all of the '90s stuff. All of that
Mhm.
90s stuff. I was just so huge into. I never really dipped into like the 80s music then. I always went like straight to grunge. But my first big bands that I was buying, like Aerosmith was my first favorite band. You know,
Mhm. I
Aerosmith
think
and Queen
that was
and things like
probably
that.
one of mine too. Like I remember when
Elton
like
John.
Crying and all them came out, like
Oh,
that album, Get
dude,
a Grip came out. It was like
Get a
I was like
Grip
obsessed with that album.
and Big Ones. I was huge in. I still love Elton John, so I like Elton John's greatest hits that I still listen to. I love me some Elton John, Leonard Skinner, Eagles. A lot of the shit my dad had. John Mellencamp. You know, there was some spillover from my dad's stuff. But when I got a little bit older, man, it was a lot of terrible butt rock, man. Just really gnarly stuff.
Music was interesting around the mid to late 90s. I feel like in
Papa Roach. It's huge.
yeah,
Ah!
I used to love me some Papa Roach, man.
I did too. I did too. That was like, late
Infest was
90s.
such a good album, man. I still listen to that album.
Remember like the little ones that came out, like the bands like Snot. Remember when they came out?
Oh
Snot.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
Snot,
Cold Chamber.
Incubus, Cold Chamber was huge. Marilyn Manson, you
Yeah.
know, random metal bands like Nothing Face and Testament. I got into for a while, and
Remember I had a CD of a band called Prick. Do you ever hear them?
I remember that band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just a wild time back then. And I was into the 80s stuff as well. Like it was one of those things that I was into because my uncle was into it. So I was always into it because he was always playing it. Like if we go over, we'd listen to like Warrant or whatever. And but it was one of those things where you like didn't really talk about it back then. Like you kind of like you liked it, but you like you didn't know anybody that liked that kind of stuff at that
It's
point.
interesting. The
It was
80s stuff that I listened to wasn't like the like the metal stuff. It was more like 80s era, like Tom Petty and
Oh,
like
I love Tom
I
Petty.
used to love. That was my first concert was Tom Petty. First time I ever had
Really?
smoked a joint was at a Tom Petty concert.
like
And yeah,
that was what
the,
started it all.
Bad Company. I remember Bad Company.
Oh,
My
yeah.
first CD, actually, my very first CD I ever owned was the Wayne's World soundtrack. Had like
All right, let's
Red
go
Hot
around.
Chili Pepper. Yeah, Red Hot Chili Peppers was on that. Bad Company, and that was in the long CD case where it used to be in the extra long
Oh yeah.
cardboard case, and that was my very first one.
I had the Wayne's World soundtrack, but on cassette tape. Now that's
Yeah.
funny that you bring that up. Let's go around the table. Mel, do you remember your first CD?
My first CD is like the only thing that I remember of my first, and that was Tupac.
Sick. Which one?
Are You Still Down?
Dude,
Oh yeah.
Tupac.
Oh yeah.
It's still
Oh,
the
I
greatest
love
rapper of all time. I fucking love Tupac, dude.
Oh, it's so good.
I don't even listen to Tupac now. I don't know why that was my
All Eyes
first.
on Me, and
Yeah, I don't know why that was. My
You don't
first.
know. Wait, you don't know why you bought it?
No. Well, I like listened to it back then, but yeah, I don't listen to it now. There's just so many other like things that I should have bought. I don't know why I bought that one because I was into like all the 80s hair because my mom and dad were into that. Meatloaf was huge for me. But then I was like an indie girl. I listened to a lot of indie music, but I also listened to a lot of Sublime and Pink Floyd and Prince and Deftones, Nine Inch Nails, Tool,
Hell yeah.
Korn.
Oh yeah. That's we definitely forgot to talk about Nine Inch Nails. I mean, that was
the Downward
everything to me
Spiral,
back
man.
then.
Was
Downward
Oh my
Spiral,
God.
yeah.
Oh my
Hell
God.
yeah.
I remember
That is so crazy.
I stole a Candlebox cassette tape from Kmart back in the day, dude. That was one of my not a proud moment, but I had that CD, and I remember my buddy Matt. He was like such a square. He still is, but he's a really good guy. But I got out and I was like, dude, look, and I showed him the Candlebox tape that I stole. He's like, dude, you got to take that back, bring it back in there, man. That was like he was my Garrett growing up. That was G-rated.
That would be Garrett too.
Don't do that, man.
That's me. Yeah.
I didn't have the money. And I wanted I wanted to hear Far Behind.
Left me far behind. Yeah.
All that stuff, dude.
I'm
Smashing
clipping
Pumpkins.
that later. just so you guys know.
And you know what though? Like it's so funny, like that the Wayne's World is such a great soundtrack. So I mean, a lot of people own that one. I never stole a CD or anything like that. I never
That's
did
good.
that.
You don't want to do that.
But,
I also had the Lion
that
King
is-
soundtrack. The Lion King soundtrack and Wayne's World were like a couple
Did
of
you
my
steal
favorites.
the Lion King soundtrack?
I got that as a gift. I didn't. Can you imagine what kind of fucking shitty kid like that's shoplifting, shoplifts the Lion King soundtrack? But that one song, dude, I can't wait to be king, dude. I used to rock that. I just can't wait to be king, dude.
You know, it's so
Gonna
sick.
be a mighty king, enemies beware.
Kind of looks like Simba when he does
Dude,
that. Look at
I
that.
know,
love it.
right?
I used to be able to sing that. I used to be able to sing. I'm bopping around my room. Listening,
Oh
I just
my
can't
God.
wait to be king, dude. I shouldn't have said. I regret saying that.
I regret this whole conversation, but let's
I
keep
love
going.
it. I love it.
But I do remember the very first, and we'll start transitioning into the real shit. I remember the very, very, very first like collector's DVD I bought.
All right,
But if we're ready to start transitioning, I definitely.
I want to
remember
talk
that.
about when you stole the Lion King.
I didn't steal the Lion King, so I
Did
stole
you-
a Candlebox.
when you got out of the store?
rode
Did you
off
go
on
up
my
on like
bike
a
really
rock and like hold it up like?
No, I just stuck it in my jacket, and I was so. What was so stupid is I took it out of my jacket like right outside the doors of Kmart. Gonna be a mighty king, enemies beware. That wasn't even
You know what,
Jonathan
though?
Taylor Thomas singing that either. They had a different singer that sang all those songs,
That's
and nobody knows who that kid is.
You better find him.
That
man. Have him
poor
on.
kid. Geez.
Yeah, no, yeah.
You know what though? Are You Still Down is my favorite Tupac album.
Is it really?
That's a
It was like a
freak- oh
double
my God, that's a
discer too.
Fantastic.
That's what I should have stole.
I think it's the same one that I'm thinking of.
I still
Did
have
it
it.
start
I'll
with the
send you a
song
picture of
like was it Tell Me How Many Real Feel Me? Is that the first song? Open Fire. Oh,
it. I have no,
that's a great album.
When you sang along to it, did you like self-edit the cuss words out of it?
Yeah, I would not say them like I just did. I would skip it. I would
My
skip
first
it.
rap
I
CD.
would mouth it.
Mother. In your
Yeah.
by yourself
do that.
too. Like I don't want to
Open
say that.
Ah, yeah. He's
My-
like, "Ah."
My first rap CD was Eazy-E, straight from the streets of Mother in Compton.
Ooh.
That's how you
And it had a
do it,
scratch. What was cool is there was an edited thing. You know, like scratcher tickets have that thing. The edition that came out of Straight from the Streets of a motherfucking Compton, it had a thing that you had to scratch off to see it. So you'd scratch off the
Oh.
thing, and you could see the
The
motherfucking.
word.
See,
on there,
Justin's
yeah.
would be all scratched off, and Garrett's.
I
would
would've
be
left
playing
it.
you
I
and
would've
You would have
Yeah.
left it. That's hilarious. No, you can't scratch that off. Well, they can listen to it, but that is
No, it's
fucking
gonna damage it. It came this way. This is in mint condition.
Oh,
if you scratch
that's
it, it's not
so
worth
funny, dude.
Oh no, he's
No, you
over
know-
here like I can't have swear words on my CD. No.
The CD covers
My-
were wild back in the day because they had all those bass CDs for like people who had subs in their car, and they would just be bass CDs. I don't know if you remember those, but they'd always have like a giant booty on the cover or like a chick in a bikini, and that's all it would be. But it would be like bass volume 1, where
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah,
like.
yeah.
Whoa.
I never had any of
Mm.
that in my car. Did you?
No, I didn't have it. I didn't have any.
No,
of
I
that.
wasn't
A
into
giant
that.
speaker in your trunk
Yeah, did
that
you have
sounded
that?
like shit. No.
Yeah.
You'd always hear
But
like the
they
dude
didn't
coming,
even
but it was
sound
like it would like
good.
rattle.
I figured you were
Yeah.
bumping
Like
some
rattle around.
ICP or some Twisted.
Oh, I
on a
bumped
sub.
ICP freaking hard. But
Well,
in
that's
my
what we can
cheap little
transition to that.
Toyota
great
Celica
Malenko.
speakers.
I remember the
Sick.
dating
Was it-
game. The first
one of those
ICP
nice
song I heard was
Celicas,
a dating
though?
game.
Huh?
Was it those nice like sporty Celicas?
It was a Toyota. It was an 89 Toyota Celica. It
Oh, yeah.
had an automatic sunroof. but crank windows,
Yeah.
That thing was a beast. It lasted forever. The car literally fell apart around the engine. That's how good it was. I miss that
So
car.
we can talk about that. I know it's not collecting, but it is interesting concept.
Well,
My
the
first
best part
CD
about
was
it was I bought it off of an old lady who like never drove it. So it only had like 50,000 miles on it. And it was like an 89 when I bought it in high school. It was crazy.
was that your first car?
Mhm.
Nice. A lot of wild times in there.
Oh yeah. Cruising the
as-
mean streets of, the village.
Yeah. Justin, you know what my first CD was? Danzig, Mother. Remember that album?
Oh, that's a good. That also had like can't speak on it too.
Can't speak.
Yeah, that was a good track, man.
Mother. That was like my first. For some reason, it's such a weird first CD to get. Danzig, Mother, or whatever it's called. Yeah, super weird. But huge into music in the teens. Like that was like my jam. And then between my uncle collecting, horror movies, and I met a kid, Keith, and we started hanging out, and we're going to his house and him having like a VHS collection. And because he worked at Blockbuster. So I remember he had like a shelf like with all these VHS, and then I think DVD like started kind of coming out around that
I got
time.
a crazy bit of knowledge to drop when we get to my Blockbuster era because I was also like,
you worked there too?
Yeah. I
Oh,
worked at a bunch of
okay.
them. I was like I was a manager at Blockbuster. I worked at all kinds of. They'd send me all over to different locations.
Manager.
I was.
I'm just kidding.
I bossed
So yeah, VHS.
I can turn my professional side on when I need to. I worked my way up.
No, I want to hear. I want to hear these stories.
You know what, Mel? That's bullshit. We're not going to skip over that.
I believe you.
Make you a manager.
That's why I'm hiding over here.
No, it's all good. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking anyway. They must have been hard up, to be honest with you, because
I guarantee this story. He stole a ton of shit over there.
Well, if we're ready to jump into that era, we can dive into it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to. Yeah. So that was this was like late.
I love you, Mel.
I love you too.
I'm going to say this was probably right after high school. So I was maybe like 19, and VHS was like, I met my friend Keith, and then of course my uncle was really pushing like horror movies and stuff. And so when I saw my friend and my uncle's collections, I was like, this is pretty cool. And I think my uncle gave me a couple VHS tapes of movies that he had like multiples of or whatever. So I think it was like Dawn of the Dead, Texas Chainsaw, and stuff like that. Last House on the Left he gave me around that time. And so I started like a little collection. And when I met my friend Keith, I was like, wow, this is cool. And then I started going to, at that time, a lot of the video stores were like trying to get rid of some of their VHS to make room for like the DVDs. So they would like have such big sales, and I would grab like tons of stuff, mostly horror. I was just like loading up on that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened was my love for like CDs and music transitioned into, I'm going to start collecting movies now. Like same way with toys. It was like, if once I was done Ghostbusters, Turtles was like the new thing, and that was it. Then once that was done, so I always like transitioned from one thing to another. There was not many times I was collecting multiple things like at once. It was always like my mindset was on one thing. Mm-hmm. And then it became, like you said, when Napster and stuff started coming out, and I could and I realized that you could like just rip your favorite albums or these albums coming out, then my love for going to need to get the albums like kind of started to die. Because then I would just go on my computer, rip it, throw it on a disc, and then I'd be like, oh, there it is. I don't need to go to the store and spend $15 on this thing.
Lars Ulrich's world came crashing down.
Yeah. I mean, it really that's really the end of my like CD collecting was around the time that you could, what would you call it, rip or download at that point. And then it started becoming into movies was like the big one for me at that point. It was started with VHS, and we can go through this too. My first DVD I bought was Fright Night. I can remember that. My second one was Exorcist, and my third one was Scary Movie. Those were the first 3 DVDs I ever bought after I bought my DVD player. So yeah, so then it started to get into hardcore VHS and DVDs at that time, right after high school. Now, do you know your transition, Mel? Like, were you still collecting music? Do you still collect it heavily now? I know you're into comic books too. Like, when did that start too? Is that around now, or is that later in life?
I guess that kind of started in high school. because I was collecting the Johnny the Homicidal Maniac comic books.
Wow,
That
so
sounds
there's
sick.
some horror there too.
Yeah, so those were really fun. I actually have some really old um like Marvel comic books, but I only have a few of them. I keep them, but they're not like great
It's
ones
not.
or anything. I don't even know where I got them or how long I've had them for. I'm really
But
kicking
you were
myself
never a
though.
Marvel comic collector. You were never really into that stuff, being into comics.
No, I never was. I have them. I don't know where I got them, but I used to collect the Mad Max. Was it Mad Max? No. What were the magazines back in the day? The
Mad
Mad
magazines.
magazines, yeah. So I used to collect the Mad magazines, and
Mhm.
I don't have those anymore, which really is annoying because those were really cool. But yeah, I guess in high school is when I started collecting comic books, but it wasn't serious. I wasn't trying to collect any of them. I just if I saw some that I wanted to read, I would buy them and I'd read the shit out of them and I'd ruin them. I wasn't a
Mm,
very delicate collector. I think maybe that's why I'm so about turkey bagging everything because
right.
I'm not a delicate person. I break things and I, overuse things and that kind of stuff. But yeah, after my DVDs got stolen, I was so distraught and upset and I was a broke college student, so I didn't start buying them again for a while after that.
So, was it an interesting transition to, or was it just a natural transition to start getting into movies because of your mom? Like
Yeah.
that you were like, I'm going to start collecting DVDs because they're nicer upgrades than what we've been watching all these years. Is that kind of how like that started for you? Or, and the same thing with music, you were kind of collecting CDs. Did that continue or did that die out kind of similar, like I said, when you could start just downloading them instead of having to go to the store to get them?
Yeah, once I was able to, like, start buying them off iTunes and stuff, I kinda stopped buying CDs after that. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure why I started transitioning to DVDs. I think I just heard the transfers were better, so I was like, "Cool, I'm gonna try that." But I was a lot like my mom back in the day where I was just like, I only wanted to own the movies that I loved, so I wouldn't blind buy anything. So I literally bought, like, the same movies over and over and over again, um, just different transfers or because they got stolen or whatever and I
Hmm.
had like a set amount of movies. And I think that's why I have such a, well, I guess it'd be considered a small collection, comparatively to other people now, is because I have a lot of the movies that I absolutely love, but I'll blind buy movies now because I think it's fun to find like a little hidden gem here and there. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of what it is.
No, that's cool. That's cool. What's up, VHS Mikey? Welcome, man. Um, I mean, it's so funny just to see kind of how everything started transitioning, and like I said, it's you've always been around movies, so this is only kind of a natural thing for you to have in your life, right? Because they've always been there.
Mm,
It's always
yeah,
been a big thing in your family, right? So
mostly
now
just
you're
my
just
mom's. Sure. Well, I
I
guess my brother's kind of that way too. He's not much of a collector, but he has to have the movies that he loved from his childhood and stuff like that.
now. Do you see your brother a lot or no?
Not anymore. He just moved out of state, so I
Oh,
don't see him a lot anymore.
so he doesn't come to your house and be like, "Can I take this?"
Oh my god, I he came to my house for Christmas and I showed him my movie collection and he was like, "What the?"
what happened?
He wasn't impressed.
Yeah.
He wasn't impressed. He was
No, not at
mortified.
all.
He was mortified
He
by this.
yeah, he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I don't know." But then I started pulling out all of our, like, stuff from our childhood, and he was like, "Oh my god, you
That's
have
awesome.
that? I want that." So I think I triggered something a little bit.
Then you try to show them like how cool the edition is, and it's like, yeah, that's cool that it has like 5 discs. What is this? A slip
Yeah.
cover, a slip box, and all that. You
Did he
all
say?
you
Did
need
he
is the
say
movie.
you haven't opened any of these? And you're like, no, I actually put them in bags after.
I rebag them. I open them up and then put them in another bag.
He did. He was like, "What the fuck is going on there?" And I was like, "You
I
don't."
mean, I gotta take it out of a bag, then out of the slip cover, then open the case, and then find it. Yeah.
Well, he was really surprised by some of them where I was like, he's like, "Why didn't you open those?" And they're like factory sealed. I'm like, "I will never open it." And he's like, "Why do you have that? How do you watch it?" And I was like, "I don't watch that one. I watch this one."
What was the name? What was the name of your turkey that you had as a pet?
Thor? Why?
So you're Thor bagging them. It's not just turkey bagging. You're Thoring them.
I Thor my movie.
Oh, shit.
I was wondering
Nuts.
where you were going with that. That was good.
Me too, as I was saying.
But yeah, I was like pulling him out and I was showing him the different artworks, and he was like, just gave no craps about the artworks or the packaging. He was just like, I like the original artwork. And you know, all crap.
You trying to tell him like it's squishy? He's like, what's happening? What are you talking about? What's squishy? Where?
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the first like cool like edition like DVD that you got? Like I remember, I'm sure I had other random DVDs and movies that I just cannot remember now, but the very first time I went to Best Buy and I started seeing, oh, there's other movies, and I don't even think I had heard of the movie, to be honest with you. I'm not going to try to be a poser. I started seeing movies outside of the super mainstream stuff, like, oh, there's other movies besides like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. But I remember walking into Best Buy because I was like, you know, I was looking into building a collection because I noticed that people started to have movies at their house, that, you know, DVDs and stuff. And I saw I'm sure, Garrett, you still have this, probably the original one. I don't have it anymore, but the Reanimator plunger set that has the pen. It was pen. You have that one?
Yep.
That was the very, very first like cool thing that I remember buying. And I didn't even know what the movie was. I just thought it looked cool. I was like, this is fucking awesome. Somehow I missed it like in the video store era days and stuff like that. But that was the first movie I ever remember buying, and started buying horror movies. And that was a really big one for me. I wish I still had that, man.
You might be able to get that at a pretty good deal now.
It's available.
I would think.
Yeah, it's available. I've seen it.
Available. Yeah.
The pen's all dried up though.
As I was gonna say, you got to see what the pen's like. I'm curious. I don't know what my pen looks like. I wonder if it's dried up. I still have that up in my movie library over there.
Yeah, that's a cool set.
Can't talk about that yet. But yeah, I still have that over there. But yeah, it's a really, really cool set. And that's what's so cool about, you know, we're starting to transition into like the DVD era. And that to me was like, that was my hardest in collecting. Like I was collecting so hard then, like it was insanity. It was every single time I got a paycheck, I would be like, boom, right to a couple stores. And what was nice back then is that we had a lot of like stores that were doing like used at the time. So you were finding like just boatloads of stuff for like $1.99 and stuff like that. I don't have any places now that sell used unless it's like a thrift store. Like
I have vintage stocks and things like that around me.
Yeah, we have nothing here. We have I have Walmart, Best Buy, and Target. That's it. Like I don't have specific movie stores. Like we used to have a place called Newberry Comics, which we still have one in the mall, but there used to be like standalone ones around here, and they would do that. But their movie section now is like very small. So you would have aisles of just used horror movies, and I would just go nuts just buying so much stuff there. And the same thing with like, there was FYE was a big one that did a lot of used stuff back in the day.
We still have one of those here. We had a massive one that just closed recently around here that was just, it was huge. It was really sad to see that one go.
We had this place, Movie Stop. It was literally like my favorite store, and that they had a bunch of used stuff. It was basically GameStop's. It was GameStop, but there was for movies. Like they had a piece called Movie Stop, which was the same thing, and they ended up closing that whole part down. And man, it was just a wild time back then. I was just getting so much stuff, and you guys will see soon because I still have like pretty much all my DVDs, and it's craziness.
Yeah, at that era, I really wasn't my movie collection really didn't start to like blow up until I worked at Blockbuster. And I guess this is a good time to tell you about this. This will, like, to anybody who worked at Blockbuster will remember this. But you know, when a big movie comes out, like a big new release, like, you know, at that time when it was like 2007, 2008, when a massive movie came out like Jumper or like Wanted or some bullshit like that, they'd have a billion copies of it. and they would fill the whole wall up. You guys remember you walk the new release wall, and that's how it was. And once the demand went down for those, they would sell them, although they weren't always selling the used stuff. That was kind of later when Blockbuster started losing money in other ways, and they were changing all kinds of things. They'd tell us we'd have something new to tell the customers. Like every time they came in, the customers just started to get exhausted. Like, I don't want any candy or all this extra shit. But anyway, all that to say, once the demand went away for a big title, they would have this DVD destroyer. So we'd have a little sheet, and we'd have to walk around the store, and it'd be like, you have to pull 30 copies of this, 40 copies of this, 20 copies of this, and you'd pull them all, you'd put them in a stack, and we'd stick them in a grinder, and we'd go, and it would just demolish the disc, and it would make it unreadable. And we'd have to just like throw them in the dumpster. But me and a couple of the other guys, we'd be able to just like fill, I mean, we're talking like 50-gallon bags of just movies. So we'd have tons, but that was really like, it would be a lot of the same movies, and they wouldn't all be great. But every once in a while, they'd be like, you got to destroy a copy of Clerks or Pulp Fiction or something. It's just like, what the fuck is going on here? That company was so stupid.
Why, like,
is it because they wouldn't sell or what?
The demand, they'd have like 150 copies of a movie that nobody was renting anymore. So they'd just be sitting around. They'd sell some of them used. And I imagine it had something to do with the movie companies themselves. Because, you know, I don't know exactly what kind of fuckery was going on behind the scenes that made them want to destroy all these movies, but that was a big part of my job, was destroying physical media. It was absolutely insane. But I did get a decent amount of movies from then, and that I worked at CD Warehouse and the U-Stop. I was like the asshole that somebody would come in and have their stack of movies and be like a giant stack of shit. I'd be like, yeah, I'll give you $5. Sorry, man, it's the best I can do. And then we'd turn around and sell all those for like so much more money.
Well, let me ask you this, and I don't know if you touched upon it. When you had to destroy that stuff, was it ever like, all right, the employees get first dibs to keep them?
No, we weren't supposed to. No.
Like, think
it was
about
like
that,
breaking the rules.
Like, imagine how wild that is. Like, why wouldn't you just be like, hey, if you guys want it, take it, and then you're gonna destroy the rest, right? Like,
because I guess you just weren't supposed to legally sell them.
Yeah,
I don't know what it was.
I
mean, over the entire country where Blockbuster doing this, they probably destroyed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of movies, which is it's absolute insanity. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. That is wild. And now, like, if you ended up taking anything, would people get in trouble if they found that out?
Not anybody that I knew. I never knew about it. We'd have to, like, basically what we do is we'd set our cars outside, like kind of by the dumpsters, and then we'd be like, oh, taking the piece to the trash, and then we just like throw them in our car. And we'd have like a trunk full. But eventually I had a trunk. My trunk was full of so many fucking hundreds of movies that I threw them away. There was nothing to do with them. What am I going to do with 50 copies of like Old Dogs with John Travolta and Martin or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, my friend Keith used to take a lot of stuff too. That's how he got such a big collection, was because he was working at Blockbuster and he would find a way to get them. So it's just wild to me that they were that strict about that stuff. You figured they'd be doing their employees some favors.
They did the same with merch too. Like, they had these amazing prints, like these framed art prints.
I remember they had like that little section with like I'm always seeing like Scarface and stuff like that.
Oh, but they weren't just prints. They were like textured. They were really cool pieces. And if those didn't sell, we were supposed to throw them away. I remember I had a Friday the 13th, the original artwork on there. And it was all that stuff, like merch. And because they really started to get into selling everything towards the end, because they were just, they had an opportunity to buy Netflix and they didn't. So they started their own Blockbuster online. And that's how it transitioned. But there was a time when Blockbuster was in position to buy Netflix in its infancy, and they didn't. They were still trying to hold on to that stuff. And then Redbox came along and all that stuff. But yeah, it was a wild time. And then I ended up working at CD Warehouse too. And then I got tons of stuff there too. And that was a lot of fun, man. That was a lot of fun. You're giving people, I'd piss a lot of people off because I'd give them, a quarter for a DVD and stuff. But I'd buy stuff that I wanted. I'm like, ooh, I want that. 50 cents for it.
Now, let me ask you this. What about things like if you guys got video posters or any kind of like standees or whatever. Like those are to me are really cool just because they're just like you'll never see stuff like that anymore. Like video posters or like,
The
hey, this
coolest
movie's,
thing,
you know,
the coolest thing that I remember getting was they would have a bunch of promo posters that would sit like as you walked out the door. They would have stacks of like promo like art cards and stuff. And I got the full set of when Grindhouse came out. I have these little like probably I don't know what size they are, 13 by 18. They're kind of like a 16 by 9 looking like shape, you know, thing. And I have a set of Death Proof from there, but it was few and far between because there was kind of a lot of garbage coming out at that. That's like my least favorite era of horror for the most part, was in that like mid 2000s era. I didn't like a lot of stuff that was coming out, but Grindhouse was one that I did get some cool stuff from.
Now, would they let you guys take posters though, or no?
At Blockbuster? Yeah, we could take the promo stuff. Yeah, we could take.
Yeah, that's
kind of
cool because I think like even the Shocker poster behind me, maybe it isn't. I don't. I think no, it's not. I have some of the posters though. Like if you know 80s originals, obviously they come in 27 by 41, and these frames behind me are 27 by 40. So if I want an original of like something that's 27 by 41, if I can find the video poster from the video store, the original, that's always like 27 by 40. So then I'm able, like sometimes I'll score one of those just because I'm like, oh, well, I can throw it in one of these frames back.
Put it in the frame.
Because they were always, and it's the same image. It would just on the bottom, it would just say like now on video cassette or coming soon to video cassette instead of like, you know, in theaters now, whatever. So it's pretty cool. I just didn't know if you guys, you know, were allowed to take that kind of stuff or any of the cool, you know, cardboard promo stands or whatever like that.
What was cool too, is after I worked at Blockbuster, I worked at CD Warehouse. That probably had to have been around maybe 2010 or something like that. Probably, I can't. My brain is so scrambled. I can't remember what year anything happened in my life. But remember, when I first started getting into horror again, like aside from like growing up, I was really into seeking out the most disturbing movies I could find. So when I really started getting back into collecting, that's when I started Googling like the most disturbing movies. And that's, I found like Ebola Syndrome and Men Behind the Sun and Necromantic and all of those weird fucking movies. The Last Supper, which is a really cool movie, and all that stuff. And I used to have to special order them because I really didn't know about ordering online. That just wasn't a big thing at that time, at least for me. So I go to CD Warehouse and I tell the guy, I want this. I remember he'd fucking look at me like I was a weirdo with some of the movies that I want him to order. You know, he's like, there was this one called Aftermath, which is, if anybody's seen Aftermath, you know what I'm saying. But he looked it up and he's like, all right, man. And he would order it. And then once I worked there, I realized that their special order was just Diabolic DVD. They were just upcharging Diabolic DVD. So there was a $3 upcharge. So, you know, there was already a little bit of an upcharge from Diabolic TV. So I'd have him order my copy of Necromantic 2, and it would be like, you know, $29 for like the thing. At Cannibal Holocaust, I remember getting that one. I was like watching all these fucked up movies.
You know what? I think we all went through that period in a sense because that's where the genre was kind of going at that point, you know, with like Hostel and Saw and all that stuff. Because I can even remember being like, I need the uncut version of Murder Set Pieces. You know what I mean? Like I can remember being in that kind of era too, that I was just looking for like the grossest, goriest, most messed up stuff I could find. You know, I have the Necromantic 1 and 2. I mean, I would probably never watch those again, but like at the time when I got it, I was like, oh, this is so wild that I love it.
Scram was another one that
like I could never watch it now. But yeah, it was a wild time back then at that era of horror. Like even like August Underground and Toe Tag Pictures and all that other stuff were like out there. But yeah, that's crazy. Now, was that at CD Warehouse that you would order that?
Yeah, that was at CD Warehouse. I remember I got my copy. I had the Sleepaway Camp set came in through there. The like Forbidden one that came through, and all this really cool stuff, which I don't have. I ended up selling some of that stuff. Like I'd trade it back to get other stuff. You know, because
so is that where your collecting really started hitting hard? Was like during the era of you working there? Because
I don't know what was going on with me. I wasn't I was never very good with money, so I'd get hard up for money, and I didn't realize these things were going to be collector's items, and Blu-rays were not a thing. There was no big collectors, not like it is until about probably 2011, 2012, 2013 when Scream Factory started coming out. What was the first year of Scream Factory? Was it been a little early with the TV stuff?
Yeah,
they started putting out TV stuff earlier, but I kind of dropped off for a while, And then that's probably a good place to start this next section. That's when like I started watching YouTube and discovering like real collecting. I was like, I have to get in on that. And that was when I started watching, Flick Pick, Cool Duder, Wet Movie, shout out Brendan, and all those cats, and started really getting into like, oh, this is like a thing. Like I used to collect movies. I used to buy all these weird movies. Like I don't have them, but now I kind of want them. So I started rebuying stuff that I had, and noticed, I remember I bought like 2 or 3 copies of a movie off Amazon, and I noticed that they were all from they all had the same look to them. That was Scream Factory. I was like, oh shit, this is Scream Factory. Like, this is cool. And then I started finding Arrow Video, and then I found, all the other, and it just kind of snowballed into, where I am now. And I've been collecting, pretty solid for 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah. I mean, that was like the glory days, like for that. Now, Mel, when you were just buying some of your favorite stuff on DVD before the big theft, were you collecting, or were you just buying some of your favorites at that point?
I was always just trying to scout out my favorites. So I would never be able to find them in a store. So I was ordering online pretty early. Because a lot of the stuff, was already super old, and you couldn't just go to the store and find it. So I noticed later on in my DVD collection that I did have like some old Scream Factory DVDs and some like Anchor Bay DVDs and stuff like that I didn't even know about the companies. I just wanted the movie. I have a lot of like weird Canadian DVD releases just because that's where like the movie I wanted came from. So Night Watch is a big movie that I always have to have in the collection, and that one I couldn't find for the longest time. So I had to order that one, and I think it came from Canada. And like Gleaming the Cube maybe? No, not Gleaming the Cube. What one was it? Just I don't know. There's been several of them that I've ordered online that came from weird places. And then when I started actually looking through my DVD collection, I started noticing these distribution companies and that kind of thing. But yeah, I was also really late to the game with Blu-ray because I just refused to buy all my movies again.
Same.
I was like, I'm not doing this again. I've already done this 3-4 times already. I'm not doing it again. So I kept buying DVDs for the longest time.
I remember when Blu-ray was like a big thing. Like it was when going back to Blockbuster, when people started pushing for Blu-rays, that they would really push us because it was a higher rental price to rent the Blu-rays. It was $1 more, so they were pushing us to Blu-rays, and I'm like, who the fuck is renting Blu-rays? Like this is not it's not any better. And people would come back and be like, it's better than DVD. I'm like, okay. I'll stick to my DVD. And
oh my God, I thought the same thing. I was like, these Blu-rays.
Who the hell's watching Blu-rays? But I didn't have a Blu-ray player, and it took me a few years.
I didn't either, and I didn't want to buy one either.
Yeah.
I was the same way because I was so heavily into DVD collecting that I'm like, I'm not starting this again. Like, there's no way, right? Like, it's just never going to happen. And I was really heavy into DVD. Like, that's when I started I noticed labels like, Dark Sky Synapse, and the biggest one for me was I was a big Anchor Bay guy. Like those are the guys that put out like that Reanimator set. They were doing like these weird, tin sets, and Wicker Man came in like this wooden box. Like it was just wild. Like they were like so ahead of the game. You could get Phantasm in the Sphere, with all the discs in there, but you had to you had to get it on the UK. And I remember like going on to Amazon UK and be like, oh wow, if I pay this much, they'll send it to my house here. Like I was really kind of getting into that. And I was getting into YouTube around that time during the DVD collecting. And like you said, following people like Wet Movie, Cool Duder, Flick Pick, like you said. I mean, I was even watching like Ryan 1988. I was listening to Dead Pit every week. So like I was like looking for movies that they all liked that maybe I didn't have, that I was like, all right, well, I'm going to check this one out because this guy recommended it. And so I was watching YouTube very early on. Like it must have been probably, I don't know, 2005, maybe 2004.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. Like it was early on for sure that I started that, because I remember living at home, and that's when my collection was just getting insane. Like it was like I had shelves and there was like stuff was stacked on the floor, like you could barely walk in my room. So then that's why I purged my VHS collection in 2008, I think I was, because I needed the shelf space for all the DVDs that were just piled all over the floor. So I started to I sold like every VHS tape that I had that either wasn't a childhood favorite or like a franchise like a Friday the 13th or something. But if I had it on DVD, I was tossing it.
We didn't know
So I
any
ended up
better at that
selling
time.
probably like
Mhm.
200 VHS tapes for like $80 to some dude. And I remember like giving him like garbage bags full and like out of my trunk and like him giving me like $80 cash. And me
Are we
being
talking
"All right,
like
see ya."
classics? Like were you
Oh,
like
dude, I had
sleepaway
a
camps
Frank.
and
Like
shit
the
like
good
that?
Oh
old
yeah.
horror ones.
Oh yeah.
Oh
All
my
those
God.
sleepaway camps. I had my biggest regret is
Oh
I had a
my
Frankenhooker tape that if you pressed
Do you
the
have the
button, it said, "Want
the
a
talking
date?"
one?
Yes.
Oh.
I had the media Texas Chainsaw, the one that everybody wants, like the one with like that weird, leather face in the front. I had like this cool Last House on the Left one. Like I had a
I'm
lot of
surprised
cool
you
stuff
didn't
that I
hang
let
on to
go.
like those special ones, being that you did have
I
that
didn't know,
collector's
like
mentality.
I didn't think about it. Like, I was like, I have Frankenhooker already on DVD. I don't need it. It wasn't something I grew up with, but yet I kept like Ninja Turtles and Wayne's World and all those ones that were like big for me growing up. And I kept all the Fridays, all the Halloweens, all the Elm Streets. And that's probably my biggest regret as a collector was purging my VHS collection, because as we know,
Yeah, same.
you couldn't give that shit away back then. But a couple of years later, if I would have held on to it, it's like VHS boom, like started to happen again. I was like,
$50 a pop.
man, I could have got so much more for these if I would have waited, or I would have just wanted to collect them again. And at that point, I had bought my first place and I had a lot more space. I could have put them, if I would have just held off and not been just like, I got to get them out of here and I need money. Like,
You could have retired, man.
yeah. But it was just a wild time, and I didn't want to transition to Blu-ray, and I finally bought like I think my big first purchase when I bought my first house was a condo, and I bought a 50-inch TV, which at that point was like the biggest TV I ever owned, because I was just in my bedroom or whatever at that
It
point.
was like
So
a
I had
heavy ass plasma or something.
yeah, like I had like a small TV. Oh, the one that I bought, my first one. It was a Samsung, and it had like a weird, like a red, kind of almost like a dim red light around it. I forget the name of it, but it was 1080p, and I bought a Blu-ray player with it. And I was like, you know what? Lost Boys is on Blu-ray. I'm going to get it. And when I put that Lost Boys in for the first time, I was freaking blown. I like had to call my brother. You got to come over, man. Like he's looking at it. He goes, what's wrong with this movie? Like it almost looked like I was filming it with a camera. Like it was freaking wild to me. Like I remember sitting there and being like, this is insane. Like, so then of course I was like, I got to get more Blu-rays. Like it just felt like I was watching movies that I've seen hundreds of times for literally like the first time. That's how crazy the switch was for me. That then I was like, okay, I got to start getting Blu-rays of all my favorites because this is insanity. And what's funny about that TV is it's still here. Oh wait, no, I just replaced it. That's why I just got this new TV. Like so, literally, I've had that 50-inch TV since probably 08, and it's not dead. I could was thinking about selling it, but I just don't have any space for it because every time I buy a new TV here, I move this one to the next room, then the next one to the next room. Like so, I just kind of work them that way, and that was in the last in line now, but yeah, that kind of was my adulthood transition to Blu-rays, and that's kind of how I am where I am now. And it got to a point where I felt like I had like every DVD I wanted. So then it started to transition into posters and different things because at that point I was like, I got everything. Like when it came to DVD, and like Screen Factory had just started to come out. So then you started kind of rebuying stuff. But before Screen Factory and rebuying a lot of this stuff, I was like very minimal Blu-rays. It was just my favorites. And I wasn't going shopping anymore for DVDs and stuff. Like the stores were closing. So I was just kind of happy with the collection. I wasn't buying much except for Screen Factory at that point. So that's when I started collecting different things because I was like, the mindset was in me like, I got to collect. But what do I collect? I've got all the movies that I need. Yeah. That's where I was. And now you look at it and you're like, shit, like I'm still doing the movie thing. Yeah, because these companies, these boutiques are like, they're putting out movies that haven't even seen the light of day or that I've never had in my collection. Like Vinegar Syndrome is pulling out stuff that I had never even heard of. And I felt like I said, at one point in a DVD collecting game that I had almost everything that I thought was out there. But like Mel, I want to hear like your kind of transition from like after the DVD theft right? Like, when did it come back to you? Like, hey, I want to do this more, and I want to talk about it, and I want to have a collection and have a setup and all that stuff.
It was like a really long time after that because I was still in college, so I had to finish school, and I went to school in Chicago, and then after I finished school, I had to find a job, and then I moved back to my home state, and then I was job hunting, and so it was actually a really long time before I was settled up enough to even be able to have extra spending money. It's like years and years.
Yeah, that was kind of the same thing for me. Until like, I don't know, probably in the last like 7 years or so recently, I didn't even have the kind of like throwaway money to even build a collection, to be honest with you. You know, I was, worried about paying my rent and shit. So over the past few years now that I'm making some money, it's once it started, it just never stopped. And now I'm just a crazy person with a, Sam animatronic behind me. It's just, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
I love the animatronic though. I want to walk into your house and have them like all going off at the same time.
Well, maybe that'll happen.
But yeah, so when I finally did, like, I started wanting to watch certain movies and I couldn't find them anywhere, so I started back in with the buying them online and stuff like that, and it was DVDs, and I just had a bunch of DVDs. It actually wasn't until I was starting the podcast originally when I bought my first Blu-ray because I needed a movie for the podcast. So I had a podcast before I had a podcast. I was doing it with a friend of mine for the longest time. And then she ended up going back to school and didn't have time to do it with me anymore. So I just rebranded, I guess, and that's what you see now. And so that was the reason why I bought my first Blu-ray. And then I started doing the podcast by myself, and I was like, I wonder what would happen if I just dumped my podcast episodes, because I was recording them too, just for fun. If I dumped them on YouTube, so I started doing that, and then I found Tony.
He was the trigger for everything.
Well, kind of, because I was like, man, I'm just gonna start rebuying all of my movies on Blu-ray now. So then I just started rebuying them all on Blu-ray.
So at that point, you were
buying stuff.
Oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
You were just pretty much starting a collection from scratch again at that point, because
I've started my collection from scratch so many times. Yeah, like I should have just quit while I was ahead, but I just always have that need to have my favorite movies at arm's reach so that I can just pop them in whenever I want. I don't want to have to like see if it's playing on TV or now see if I can find it streaming somewhere, or to rent a movie to me now is like blasphemy. Like, I don't want to rent a movie. I don't want to pay, even though it's only like $4 or $5 on like Vudu or something to rent fairly new movies. I don't want to do it.
Why wouldn't I just buy it?
Yeah, I don't want to do it anymore. It like kills me when I have to do that. And yeah, I'd rather just watch the physical media release. So
when you guys first started buying movies, I know you mentioned Amazon, but I know for me, it was just diabolic for the longest time. That's like the first place that I learned about to buy random shit. I feel like was that the same for you guys?
Mine was eBay, and then it was Deep Discount DVD.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of buying on them because they were free shipping, so I was like, oh, this is the best.
I literally would just jump on Google and I would type in the movie and whatever the first website was, I'd be like, ding. So I have no idea.
Mel, what's interesting though is you said you started a podcast with your friend. Was this in college or right when you got out of college?
No, it was only like the year before like I popped up on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Now was it to
It was
talk
for
about
like a
movies?
year. Yeah, so what we were doing is we were doing like in-depth analyses on books and movies. So like our first episode was Pet Sematary. So we read the book, and then we talked about the comparisons and contrasts between the book and the movie, because she's like a book nerd and I was a movie nerd. So
cool.
yeah, we would like bicker and banter back and forth about which one we thought was better and stuff. It was actually really fun. It was actually really fun. I thought we had a really good thing going there, but yeah, she went back to school and she's doing really, good things and stuff. So I don't know. It just was what it was.
You should try to get her on someday.
Yeah, maybe. If she's super busy, so that was part of the reason why she couldn't do it anymore. But
and here's where you are now. Now it's become not only just movies, but other things and having a room and all this other stuff, right? So
yeah, I'm just spending more money now.
Scary amount of money.
Yeah, that's why we're all on a freeze.
Spending freeze. Hashtag spending freeze.
Hashtag spending freeze.
We need a spending freeze shirt. Just hashtag spending freeze.
Oh my God, we need one.
We will have to. I do feel though, like I started collecting hard, like I said, and like when I was still living at home, and in my early 20s is like really when I was really going hard on it. And then I got my first condo, and so I had a movie room, and then that was like, then I started getting more into posters and stuff because I needed stuff to fill the walls and and all that stuff. And then when I bought this place, and that's why things are just as whack as they are, because again, I've been doing this now for almost 20 years. So when I just recently posted that movie room tour, and a lot of people are asking questions about it and messaging me about certain things, and being like, oh, I wish I could have all that stuff and stuff. But dude, like, you got to realize, like, this is like 20 years of like nonstop like collecting. Like there was the only time I ever purged was in 2008 with my VHS. Like I never sold anything other than that. I'll sell things on eBay now and then. Like, actually I always have stuff on eBay, but it's like little things, give or take. Or if I need extra money, I'll be like, oh, I don't need this poster anymore. I'll sell this. But, I haven't purged any of my collection or whatever. So this is just years and years of collecting that I have this stuff. And luckily now I just have a bigger space to do what I wanted with it, more or less.
Yeah.
But and how about you, Justin? Like once you started really getting into it, like you didn't go backwards and purge anything. It just has been snowballing with more.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is. Like the bulk of my stuff, because I look at all the shit that I have, and it's just crazy to think that I've acquired all of this in a pretty short amount of time. Like 2013, maybe 2014, and I've just filled up every room in my house with shit, because I have a spare bedroom that has like a lot more stuff. That's why I wish I had the space to put everything in one room. Eventually I'll have that, but I just didn't stop. I just started to get obsessed, man.
And it could be a good or bad thing. Like I don't know. I don't look around it at all and feel guilty about it. Like when
I first started getting in, I started buying everything, and I've started to get more picky in the last, like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years, and not buy every last thing. I'm a little bit more picky, but the thing is, like, like this new boom that we were talking about, how it's like more releases than ever, that kind of coincided with me building my collection. So in the past, like 8 years, the amount of releases has just stepped up and up and up and up. So it just makes you get in this mindset like, fuck, I got to get it before it sells out. I got to have that slipcover. I got to have that edition. And it's just like, it's especially the past, like, Garrett, you've talked about this, like in the last 2 or 3 years, it got to an insane amount of releases. It's just like, holy shit. So you really have to be picky.
You can't keep up. So you have to be picky. But like you said, the problem is these companies know this. They're tricky. Like, I'll be like, I'm not going to buy it. Then all of a sudden it's like limited to this. And you look and there's like only like 100 left. And you're like, I got to get it. Like they get you, right?
Yeah,
and
I mean,
and even
before
today,
I know what I'm buying
like,
yeah, go ahead.
I woke up this morning and I had like, I like paid some bills or whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I need to just go on a freeze right now. Like I'm spending too much money, blah, blah. I got things coming up. And then you and somebody else messaged me like, dude, the Waxwork just re-released that Turtles soundtrack. And like, I don't even collect vinyls anymore. Like that was one of the things that I'm like, I'm done with the vinyls because they're all sealed still, more or less. I barely listen to them. I don't have time to listen to them. So I'm like, why am I collecting vinyls? And Ninja Turtles from Waxwork has been out of print forever. And I missed it the first time around. Mm-hmm. And today they just re-released it again with the other ones. And I was like, if I don't get it now and this sells out again, like who knows when this thing's going to come back. And the one thing I will say is just like that score and soundtrack is so fantastic.
Mm-hmm. The electronic score.
Yeah, like I'm like I need to get it, and then I bought it, and I'm thinking to myself like I just got the day I said I'm gonna chill out for a little bit. It's like I bought like $75 worth of stuff, like
Right when I
like in
first,
one
yeah,
hit, you know?
right when I first started, the channel, which is, God, it's crazy to think it's almost 3 years, which is just, it's mind blowing to me that it's been almost 3 years. But I started to get into a lot of vinyls, and I was doing like vinyl unboxing, so I was like going crazy with vinyl. But I was like, dude, you can't collect everything, so I cooled out, and now there's so many cool releases. Like I want all those Friday releases from Waxwork. I know I'm going to end up getting the Turtles things, but those Waxwork, the packaging and the artwork on those are so amazing. Like I got all the like the Devil's Rejects and From Hell, like the Edward Scissorhands vinyl is another amazing addition. I got the Jordan Peele stuff. Those releases are just amazing. It's like impossible to not pick them up, but
they are really nice. And I like them too. And it's like I said, I have to cut bait somewhere because I'm still doing posters, I'm still doing figures, I'm still doing movies. And the one thing about the vinyls though, it's like I like to display as much as I can. So with the vinyls, like you put them in a shelf and you don't know what's what, right? So like can't even really display them well. So that's kind of my other thing is I'm like, I'm just gonna go real chill on these and maybe you get like a couple here and there, but I've kind of chilled on those. But yet at the same time, I just bought these the other day. I just freaking got these. Like, do I need these cassette tapes? Like, do I need these?
I have a couple,
right? But at the same time, it's like a VHS to me, where it's like, look, you got nice spines. You can stand them up, and you can see, like, to me, like these. As much as I don't even think I'll ever listen to this, right? But like from a display purpose, like it just makes for myself. I'm like, it's nicer for me. It's smaller. You can see the artwork. You can, I don't know. It's nostalgic, but they weren't expensive. They were, they're not expensive.
Oh, you got
Troll 2.
Demons and Troll 2?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So
there's a couple
I would
cool
definitely
ones.
like check those out. I mean, again, I can play them. I have a couple boomboxes.
And they're colored. Like they're just too cool to not grab.
I
don't have a lot of these.
And they're cheap too. That's the thing. Like Waxwork
like
is like $40 a pop. These were like a couple bucks. You know what I mean? So like that too, to me, I was kind of like, do I buy 3 for less than, $20, or do I buy one vinyl for $40? Right? Like that's kind of my mindset as well when it came to that. But again, I'm not starting something new. I'll get maybe a few, but you know, that's it. So like again, Mel, where are you at right now? Just getting what you need? Is there anything new that you're like starting to get into, or are you just kind of just rounding things out, or what?
Like new collections other than movies?
Yeah, like is there anything new like that you're like, I started getting into these now. Now that I have a room, I'm gonna get more posters. Or now that I'm like, is there anything like that or are you just kind of doing the same old?
No, I'm just kind of doing the same old. I mean, the only thing that's really kind of, I guess it's not new, but is trying to fill out my books. So like I said, I just finished my Goosebumps original series collection, and so I'm really digging into the Fear Street collection. I have a crap ton of them, but there's so many more. Because that too, the Fear Streets had different series of their own, and then I got the Christopher Pike ones that I'm trying to collect, all of those. But I also got some comic book collections that I'm trying to do. So that is more expensive than movies, to be honest with you.
And it's crazy to think about that, right?
Original first print comic books they're no joke. They're hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and you just got to pay it if you want it, So yeah, that's it. I did buy some, I wasn't going to get into the original poster game just because I didn't want to spend the money on that kind of stuff, but I am starting to pick up some of those prints.
The screen prints, which again is an expensive hobby. Trust me, that's what I'm in it. And
pretty much all of these were like $60 or $70 a piece, but I'm just getting enough to like fill up the walls, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But that's about it for collecting.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a pretty good chat. We talked quite a bit about growing up. I just love hearing these stories, and hopefully the people that are listening to us, on YouTube or, the audio version can kind of get to know us a little bit more and where we came from when it came to this stuff. And, we've been doing this quite a while, and it's really cool talking about it with other fellow like-minded people. But what I wanted to get into before we kind of sign off here, because we still have quite a bit of people here, is we have a little bit of news from our end that I want to kind of get into. Obviously, we told you guys, and if you guys are just popping in now, if you check the description box, the Radpack is now has its own YouTube channel at the Radpack or at RadPackPod. There's a link in the description. So guys, go sub down there, because after tonight, all the Radpack episodes on YouTube will be on that channel. So that's where everybody's going to congregate over there after the Radpack show tonight. So we're going to do a couple more audio stuff that's going to also be on YouTube, and then we'll do our monthly, big live shows as well. So make sure to go check that out down there. And speaking of some big shows that we have coming up, this year, because again, I can't believe it's already February now. Like January, I don't even know where it went, really.
Yeah, January blew by.
It's wild. Well, we have something cool coming up in a couple months, and we're going to talk about it now. We're coming to Panic Fest, baby!
Hell yeah. I forgot we had the little graphic there.
Baby.
Hell, the Radpack is invading Kansas City. The Radpack is coming to Kansas City. So Panic Fest is a film festival. It's one of the biggest film festivals in the United States. It's going to run April 13th through the 24th, and you guys will be coming down that first weekend. So the Radpack is we're going to have some in-person shit going on. It's crazy.
We're gonna play with Justin's toys.
You get to come over to Justin's Playhouse, and we're gonna do some content. Go see some movies. Now, what's cool about this is a lot of the big movies that came out, especially ones that came out on Shudder. Offhand, of course, I just can't pull any out of my brain right now. But the movies that we will be seeing in April, this will be the first time anybody's seeing these movies. So I wish I could remember some of the ones from, I don't know if you guys have the ability to pull up Panic Fest 2022, but if you go on Panic Fest website, you can look at last year's lineup for 2022, and you'll see that a lot of big movies that came out this year were at Panic Fest way last year. So we're going to be seeing movies in April before anybody else, before they're released to the public, before they go to streaming, a lot of them before they're going to hit theaters. The Radpack's going to be seeing them first. So we're going to be doing some vlogs, some IRL stuff. Probably do some streams from the Playhouse here, and it's going to be fun. We're actually going to meet up in person. So this is going to be crazy. We're really, really excited about it. I'm so glad you guys are coming, man. I'll show you my hometown, and see this really cool theater, Screenland Armor Theater in Kansas City. It's one of the oldest independent theaters around. It's been around for close to, I want to say, like 60 or 70 years. And it's a really, really cool thing. So they also have events, live events, screenings, Q&As. Like last year, they had Mick Garris come for the anniversary of Sleepwalkers. Joe Lynch and Adam Green came for a live Movie Crypt podcast. Goblin, Claudio Simonetti did a live scoring with a live band to Suspiria. So it's going to be really, really cool. The events and movies, the schedule hasn't been released yet. That's going to be another month or two out. Yeah. Are you guys excited to come to Kansas City?
I'm super excited for the food because you were like really hyping up.
That seems to be all I talk about. Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm here for it.
Yeah. We're going to do tons of good food, and we'll do some vlogs. We'll try to do as much content as we can.
It's gonna be cool, man, because like honestly, like I don't travel much. Like I really don't have time to, right? So I really had to do some things to make all this work. And I'm not close, right? So I flight tickets are not cheap right now, right? But I knew I honestly I need this because and usually what I'll do a couple times a year is I'll meet up with friends down in like New Jersey where I'll go to convention and stuff like that. But like there's a couple things like I really want to do, and it's like I just gotta just do it, right? Like to come there, go to this movie fest with you guys as the Radpack. I mean, this is doing a little appearance, doing a vlog, meeting up with other people that either watch the show, or we've even talked to other YouTubers that are going to be there as well. And we're going to do like, we'll go to lunch or a dinner together, and Justin will show us around the town and it's in the city. And it's probably so different than what Mel and I are used to, kind of where we are. And like she said, the food and stuff's going to be cool. And, it's just going to be fun to go all out and party. And that Saturday night, we're going to do a live show together in person from Justin's house. As far as what the concept is going to be at that time, we don't know, but we'll all be there, at the same table recording live, which will be interesting and kind of crazy, right? Because we're all from such different areas, and it just is going to be a cool time to do it. And I just think we're killing a lot of birds with one stone here, and I'm really excited. And we're going to be doing, if we do photo shoots and stuff like that, like me and Justin, like we've been working out hard, man. Like
that's right.
We're getting ready just in case, like we have to do like these crazy photo shoots. Like Mel wants to do this like Baywatch shot, this shoot or whatever. Like, so if Justin and I have like the red and orange shorts on, like we've got to be ready to go. So like I've been dieting for the last like 4 weeks. Like so I'm getting ready because we already know that that's going to be a shit show that weekend as far as the food intake and stuff. So I just got to be prepared for that.
And we want to really plan out and try to maximize this. First of all, I am so glad and I appreciate so much, because I know how it's not easy for us with jobs and life. And, Garrett, you have a kid and all this stuff. It's not easy to make these things happen. So I'm so appreciative. I'm so happy that you guys are coming. I'm going to try to do my best to show you around town. And I know there's a couple of guys that we talk to who also live in Kansas City who have channels and stuff, but we really want to maximize the time here. So, I mean, we're talking like outfit changes, doing some photo shoots and promo shots. The weather's going to start turning up, and there's some really cool spots to, shoot some videos. Like I said, do some vlogs and review some movies. We'll be able to tell you guys about movies that are going to come. So we're going to see them before anybody else. So we'll be able to tell you movies that, they're going to be playing like 50 or 60 movies. It's movies all day from open to close, movies just going on all day. So we'll be able to maybe even come back after the days seeing movies and be able to tell you about that, people out there who are watching the show, look out for this movie. This is coming then. Look out for this movie. And you'll notice these movies start popping up. And it's just going to be so cool. I can't wait. I can't wait.
There's good opportunities too. I mean, we're going to all be there together, right? We can network, there's so many things that can be positive there. And I think it's going to be a fun event. And I've been to conventions all the time, but never anything like this where you actually sit there and just watch upcoming movies. Like I've never done that kind of thing before. Yeah. And I think it'll just be very neat to do. And like Justin said, the city that he lives in is a pretty poppin' city. Like, so it'd be cool just to kind of do that kind of stuff. And I really I think at the end of the day, not only to see you guys in person, but like to just live Justin for a couple days. I gotta see how this rolls. Like I really gotta see it. Like I want him to tell me okay, this is the time we all wake up, 11:30 or whatever. Like I gotta
be late. It's good.
At 3:30 we wake up and eat Sun Chips. Like I just want to know what happens here, over there.
Yeah, we have leftover pizza for breakfast. We have we have a Shake Shack here. Shake Shack probably has one of the best burgers I've ever had. But there's all kinds of there's all kinds of really, really good food. It's gonna be, man, it's gonna be so cool. But you guys are gonna fully immerse yourself into the Movie Watch Daily lifestyle, man. Come over to the Playhouse and have fun.
You know what else though too, dude? And it needs to happen. You need to have that. I want to be over there and be playing that damn Terminator game.
Dude.
In the house.
I know that'll be set up. I have to shoot that get that unboxing done this week. It's been sitting in my living room forever. I have not done that. I've been so busy editing my podcast, Acquired Takes, available now on Movie Watch Daily. We have 2 episodes of Acquired Takes that you can watch now. Me and my co-host Jason, but editing those podcasts and the Radpack podcast and my own content, it's been crazy. And we all have really big, crazy lives. But like you said, when we come in town, just to have a few days off work and just relax and chill and not have to worry about anything but watching movies and eating food. Like that's that's pretty much those are my main priorities.
Well, if there's any like wing or like taco eating contest, we gotta try that out.
Dude, we have if that what's funny?
We'll be like Mel.
Dude,
no.
I swear to God, like, I swear, like the thing that I've been stressing the most out about, and I'm not even kidding, like the movies are going to be cool. We can all decide what movies we want to go see. We'll look at the schedule for the day and figure out what movies we're going to watch, how many gummies we're going to take, how many gummies I'm going to slip. I'm going to slip gummies into Garrett's Sour Patch Kids. He's not even going to know.
I don't even know.
I wouldn't dose you like that. But the thing I'm stressing out about it most is the food. Like, where am I going to take you guys? Because I have a limited amount of time to show you guys where to eat. We'll hit a little bit of barbecue because Kansas City's known for barbecue and things like that. And I have a spot picked out, my favorite barbecue spot. But there's also great places for pizza, wings, Mexican food, tacos. Like, it's going to be so much fun.
I mean, there's no limits. Like, no one said you have to eat like 2 to 3 times a day. Like, we could go out 5 times. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be crazy. There's not going to be a spending freeze on
eating
food.
Contest a day, though. Okay?
Not an eating contest. No, not a contest.
Dude, we should. Mel, I'm down. We'll have a wing. We'll have a wing off or something.
Oh my God! No, I won't win. You guys should see the way I eat my wings. It's ridiculous.
Do you do the thing like the people who like where they put the whole bone in there and like strip the bone?
That's what I do.
Like,
I do that. I do that. Yeah. What do you do? You
but
just,
I pick mine clean. Like I eat them clean.
Oh, okay.
Do you like take your time and do it, or do you just like rip it and then like get the extra?
No, I take my time.
But
they're like spotless. Like
the wings. If we're gonna do wings, we'll have to go to the Peanut, and these wings are huge.
It's like you're eating Thor over there, huh?
They're huge. Yeah, it's like a Thor leg.
Oh no, I knew this was gonna haunt me forever.
Oh my God, that is so funny. But yeah, guys, like you're really like this is like the first time we've like publicly announced it, right? So you guys are the first ones to hear it if you're watching it live, and then if you're on the replay, it's the first time you're hearing it. If you're listening on the audio, in April, we'll be going to Panic Fest. The Radpack will be there live.
I can't believe this is actually happening. Holy shit.
It's really happening, man. It's really happening. I can't back out. You know what I mean? Like Mel could always turn around, but I can't.
I got my tickets though, and they were expensive. So.
Yes, they are. They were not cheap. But if you got the hybrid, what is cool is that I guess I forgot to mention this. Yeah. It's a hybrid ticket. You can buy the in-person or the hybrid. So even people watching right now, people who want to participate in PanaFest, you don't have to be in Kansas City. There's a virtual option. So you can buy a virtual ticket and watch all of these movies online. So it is really, really cool. So
in that case, I mean, I could back out then. Thanks.
You're not going to. You're not backing out, Mel.
Thanks for the option. It's a 5-hour drive. That's pretty.
But that's how long it takes me to get to Jersey when I go down there. And I go down there like twice a year or whatever. I try to. But it'll be cool. I mean, you can listen to some stuff and whatnot. So it'll be cool. I heard Justin lives in the neighborhood where Barbarian was filmed.
I did. Oh shit, that's fucking hilarious. But Mel, 5 hours. That's what? That's 2 podcasts. Just listen. That's 2 podcasts. You know what I mean?
Listen to both of your podcasts.
There you go. You can listen to.
Then you'll be there. You'll be like, wow, I feel like I just got him. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's it'll be cool.
But guys, keep it up because like what we do is nothing's. I don't ever like to make things basic. So like keep your eye out. We're gonna have merch for the event. That you guys can buy online. We've already got that ready to go. And speaking of that. If you guys have been kind of watching, like I said, we've only really been going at this as a little group for like 6 months, maybe a little bit longer. I think we started our first show was in May.
Wow.
And it's crazy because I feel like even it's a short period of time, but I feel like we've been doing it a lot longer than that.
Yeah, it does.
So, we may have had like, I don't know, 6 episodes in 2022. Then, we were on other people's shows doing some stuff. So, but to kind of rehash that, Mel has a little surprise for you guys coming up. We're going to drop a new shirt tonight after the show. So you're the first one to hear it first. Limited edition. It's the 2022 Takeover shirt. And we're going to check it out right now.
Tell us what to do. We're taking over.
We taking over, brother.
We're taking over.
Sick.
Hell yeah, that design is so dope.
Justin with the blue hair, dude. So
Dude.
sick.
That is
So
so
that's
sick.
the Radpack 2022 live tour shirt. On the back of the shirt, it's got all the episodes that we did together 2022.
God, that's
And,
so
it's gonna
cool,
be-
man.
Yeah, it's very, very cool. It's going to be a limited edition run, and you can get it at Mel's T Public store. And the link is in the description. If you guys check out, it says like new shirt. After the show, it's going to be dropped live. So you guys will be the first ones to get your hands on it. And I think it's actually going to drop on a sale too. So that's usually kind of how it works. When something drops, it's on sale for like 24 hours or whatever. So if you guys like that, hop over to that link in the description to Mel's store and pick up that exclusive shirt over there. And if you get it, when you get it, make sure to post a picture of it, of you wearing it or the shirt itself. We'd love to see you guys who grabbed that thing. But really, really cool. Very like band-esque t-shirt, which I really dig.
I
I'll
was very
definitely buy it.
inspired by Def Leppard, just so you
I
guys
love it.
know.
I love
So
it.
you designed that, didn't you, Mel?
Yeah, I photoshopped that, and it took me a really long time.
God, it's an amazing design. I mean, that looks
actually-
so legit.
Yeah, I started that before the last 2 episodes of last year. So I was like
Wow.
waiting to know what the last 2 episodes were going to be called so I could put them on the back of the shirt. So it took me a really long time, but I didn't work on it like consistently because I don't have a lot of time, but it took a long time.
Man, you did an
No,
amazing
Hope you guys
job.
like it.
Thank you for doing
Yeah,
that.
it's definitely
incredible.
cool, and I think it's just cool because it's like, again, it was the first year we did this, and it was kind of a rundown of the first, half a year or whatever of doing this, and I just think it's really cool. And now, like I said, that was all YouTube only, and now we've decided to kind of go into the audio route as well. So I think it's going to be a limited. It's got the date on the back. It's killer. It's killing though.
I love that so much.
Thank you.
I hadn't seen the back. I didn't know it was a full. I think you said a mock-up of it or something. I didn't know like the tour dates and shit were on the back of it. That's
yeah,
freaking
the episode names with their dates are on the back. Too,
Oh,
just like
that
a
man-
shirt.
You're the shit. Fuck yeah.
It's so cool.
I'm buying one tonight.
So cool.
Shortly after the show because I have to activate.
You're gonna drop it.
You guys
I
have
got
to say we're
dropped, yeah.
taking over every time y'all enter. Every time we go into a restaurant, we're taking over.
Oh my god, we got to. We got to.
Oh my god, that is so funny.
We'll show up in pink beanies.
All right, guys. Hey, listen, before we get on, we're like, all right, let's keep this under 2 hours. Well, sorry, Justin.
Sorry, Justin.
I was like, can we please keep this to like an hour 15?
But listen,
No, never.
guys in the chat, you guys, we've still got a lot of people in here. You have
Knew it
been on
wasn't gonna
fire all night talking back and forth. Because this is going to be an audio podcast, we wanted to try to keep a lot of the interacting with the chat a little bit minimal just for editing reasons. But like next month, we will do a live show and it'll be more interacting with the fans. I actually think we had chatted about this. We haven't confirmed it yet, but I think since it's Valentine's Day next month, I think we should do Ask Us Anything Part 2 because that
fuck
show
Hmm.
went over so well where you guys got to call in and all that other stuff. And I think we're going to try to hype that up for our February show and have you guys call in with video questions
Yes.
because it was such a fun show last time with other, people who watch the show, other content creators, just sending video questions to us. It was super, super
it
fun.
was
and-
cool to see you guys, like actually seeing the
Yeah.
Radpackers submit the video questions. That was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were
I mean,
awesome.
I think that's so cool. So we will start hyping that up. I think that would be a great February episode. It's very interactive with all of you guys in the chat, and just send in video questions. We'll do a promo on where to send it. We can tell you right now. Send it at radpackrules@gmail.com is where you can send any video question, and then we'll play it on the show and we'll answer it live in February. So we had too many last time, so we have a couple that we're going to put on. So if you guys want your question answered, I recommend sending it sooner than later, because if there's too many, then we're gonna have to cut some until we do a third episode. So, guys, I mean, how are you guys? You guys good to roll? We talked about a lot of stuff today, man.
Yeah, we spanned our whole childhood to teenage to our adult weirdo obsessing Pee-wee's Playhouse days. We covered it all, man.
But I like hearing that stuff. I don't know why.
It was fun.
I love seeing like how other people were growing up, because I only know myself, and to see how people like Mel was, running through the woods and like she was Jenny from Forrest Gump or whatever, waiting for mom to call her in. Like I like
raccoons and turkeys.
Yeah, getting pecked by a.
That's like the tame of the animals. I'll tell you guys later.
We need Thor shirts. We need Thor shirts. We need Thor turkey shirts.
It's just Thor, God of Thunder. It's like a turkey on it.
Oh my God.
That is so funny.
This is
but guys,
for me.
Thank you all so much for checking out this newest episode of the RadPack podcast. This is Garrett at Born to Be Rad, and this is the RadPack. And like always, stay rad.
Stay weird.
Stay killer.